The Strongest Sect. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 851. Are you satisfied with my gift for meeting you? The Baekje Mountains are very vast, stretching through several states, but the real dangerous place is the deepest part, because it is known as the paradise of fierce beasts. Although there are many resources such as medicinal herbs and minerals, basically no one dares to collect them. And there is a strange thing about the Baekje Mountains. As long as a warrior enters, the fierce beasts will attack collectively, as if they have received some kind of order. Jun Changxiao has heard about this place. Until he learned about the Baekje King from the Zilin Demon King, he guessed that humans were collectively attacked by a group of fierce beasts, and it should be the demon who was secretly manipulating them. Swish. In the dark forest, 5,000 members of the War Riders all stepped on the wet ground, keeping a sufficient distance, and walking step by step. After the training of Zhu Ringui and Tao Yuan, they seemed to have transformed into special forces fighting in the jungle. Brother Khan Budo praised, your disciples are not simple. His Khan family also brought a lot of masters, but they were dwarfed by the members of the War Riders Hall. It's okay, Jun Changxiao said modestly. Master Jiangzi stopped and said, there is a group of wolf beasts 20 miles away, with a scale of about 5 or 6,000. Be on alert. Jun Changxiao immediately ordered. Swish, swish. The members of the war cavalry hall burst out with momentum, and condensed and materialized black armor in front of them. This speed, this efficiency. Without long-term and strict training, it is impossible to form it in a short time. Ziozuji has already set up the AWM sniper rifle, and is carrying a god-modified rocket launcher on his back. However, when the whole Wongu sect was on alert, a master of the Khan family muttered, there is a restriction in the forest that limits the spread of spiritual thoughts. Can he extend it to 20 miles? Others can't extend it. Jiangzi can. Because he has the body of the primordial spirit. Since he inherited this physique in the 10 Directions Death Tower, his spiritual thoughts have become stronger and stronger. Even if he is in a dark forest with many restrictions, he can still explore far. In addition to practicing, Li Qinggang and others are also constantly strengthening their physiques, and now basically beginning to see results. For example, Ziozuji, the Great Wilderness in Danshan has materialized. Although it is small in scale, the power it has formed has begun to improve its own defense. After tempering the body every day, you can clearly feel that the muscles, blood vessels and even every pore are changing. For example, Zhao Han. He inherited the body of sword transformation, and his understanding of swordsmanship has increased dramatically. Even Su Xiaomo, who is an undercover in Taixun Shengzang, is constantly comprehending the body of Wild Wind. The most enjoyable one is Yi Xingchen. After inheriting the body of spiritual veins, the speed of absorbing spiritual energy has increased, especially with various martial arts facilities and 2 mental methods. The speed of realm improvement is increasing every day. These physiques from ancient times cannot bring earth-shaking changes to everyone in the short term, but with continuous comprehension and continuous improvement of realm, the benefits brought will definitely be very great. Awoo. Awoo. After walking for a while, bursts of wolf howls came from the depths of the forest, and the rotten air was filled with a murderous atmosphere. The Khan family master suddenly became nervous. Swish, swish. At this moment, a huge wolf beast with brown hair jumped out from the dark grass, and its eyes flashed with colorful light. 7-colored wolf. A Khan family master exclaimed. Jun Chang laughed and said, this kind of wolf beast is stronger than the hurricane wolf. Tram. 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 After a while, 7-colored wolves comparable to the martial arts master level came out from the darkness, and the number gradually reached several thousand, among which there were dozens of wolves that were not weaker than the martial arts king level. Under normal circumstances, wolf beasts that have reached the level of spiritual beasts will definitely not appear easily. Now that they are gathered together, there must be something fishy. Master. A Khan family master said in a deep voice, it's a bit troublesome. With his cultivation, he is not afraid of wolves, but he has just entered the depths and has been targeted like this. It must be more dangerous in the future. Human. Suddenly, a gloomy voice came from the distant mountain. You will all die today. The Khan family and others looked up. He saw a larger and more majestic colorful wolf standing on it, so he exclaimed, "Colorful Wolf King." Judging from the aura of this big guy, the strength is not inferior to that of Martial Emperor. The Khan family warriors were a little panicked. They might not be able to defeat this level of spiritual beast with their strength. Hehe. The colorful Wolf King laughed strangely. I deliberately let that group of humans in, but I didn't expect to attract so many people. Hearing this, Khan Budo's face changed drastically. He was wondering just now, if the Baekje Mountains are so dangerous, how did the survey team he sent come in, and how did they find the mineral vein? Hearing what the Wolf King said, he understood that this was a trap set deliberately, waiting for him to fall into it. TSK. Jun Changxiao took a bite of the apple and said, "You are a bit cunning, my spirit beast." Zilin Demon King said disdainfully, "What kind of master? What kind of subordinates? It's not surprising at all." Huh. The seven-colored Wolf King turned his head and sneered, "Isn't this the guy who was chased away by my king back then? How dare he come again?" Zilin Demon King clenched his fists immediately. Thinking of the time when King Baekje used despicable means to trap him, he couldn't suppress his anger. It seems that this Wolf King is the subordinate of that guy. In this case, he is also an enemy, so there is no need to show mercy. Crack. Jun Changxiao took another bite of the apple, chewing and waving his hand, saying, "Kill them all." Bang. Boom. As soon as the voice fell, a deafening roar came. The Khan family master was shocked and pale, and then gradually opened his eyes wide, because where the wolf pack gathered, the wind was flying, and the rolling dust formed a mushroom shape, and extended to the sky. What's going on? Gradually, everything returned to calm, and a huge deep pit appeared. Thousands of wolf beasts gathered together disappeared, and crystal cores were scattered all over the ground. Swish. Zairozuji put the muzzle of the rocket launcher against the ground and began to charge the shells. The faces of the Wangu sect were calm, while Khan Budo and the Khan family masters stood there like wooden chickens. The seven-colored Wolf King was also dumbfounded, with fear in his eyes. It wanted to order its men to launch an attack and tear this group of humans into pieces, but in an instant, it was annihilated by the bomb. This plot is completely wrong. The wind is strong. Run. Swish. The seven-colored Wolf King made the most correct choice in the fastest time and turned around to flee into the depths of the forest. But as soon as he turned around, he saw Ding Xing Wang and Gongsun Hei, one sitting on a stone and the other leaning against the mountain wall, smiling with their hands folded. When did these two humans appear, and why didn't they notice it at all? Swish. Without time to think, he spread his limbs and fled to the side. But just as he turned around, Elder Ding's palm came directly at him, and then he saw the poor big guy falling down from the mountain with his head tilted, and fell at the feet of everyone with a bang. Khan Budo. Khan family master. A spiritual beast comparable to the martial emperor couldn't stand the attack in front of the vicissitudes of life. Old man. Jun Changxiao jumped up, and landed on the half-dead seven-colored Wolf King, crossed his hands, and said loudly, "King Baekje, are you satisfied with my gift? PS. The 5th update. Please vote." Chapter 852. You can have fun now. In fact, when they came in, Jun Changxiao and the others had already been caught, and a large number of ferocious beasts in the depths received the order and started to move one after another. Thousands of wolves were nothing more than the first obstacle, and there were many powerful beasts waiting for them. Since the other party gave such a hospitality, Jun Changxiao would definitely return the favor, so he ordered Zairozuji to directly bombard the wolves with rocket launchers and use the leading seven-colored Wolf King as a temporary seat. A person who is particular. He will not lose his way wherever he goes. The gift was not big, and the more lethal field artillery was not used. Jun Zongsu was particular, while Khan Budo and the Khan family masters standing next to him were in a daze throughout the whole process. They had already imagined in advance that they would be attacked by wolves and fight with them crazily, but in the end they were all killed cleanly. As for the seven-colored Wolf King comparable to the Emperor level, he was slapped and couldn't take care of himself. Shocked. All kinds of emotions rose in the hearts of the Khan family masters. In terms of surprise, they did better than passers-by A and B, which is worthy of praise. Boy, a heavy voice sounded from the depths of the forest. This king does not want to go against you. Leave the Baekyu mountains as soon as possible. Baekyu kid. Zilin Demon King clenched his fist and said angrily, get out of here. Ha. The voice came again. You are a defeated general. Why are you so arrogant? Zilin Demon King gnashed his teeth in anger, but heard Jun Chang laugh. You are the boss of this land, King Baekyu? Yes. The heavy voice said proudly. Jun Chang laughed. You deliberately use the spirit stone vein to lure me here. How could you just leave? Humph. King Baekyu said coldly. This king is very kind to let you leave. If you don't know what's good for you, you can only leave your life here. Roar. Roar. As soon as the voice fell, roars suddenly came from all directions, and then a group of tall and fierce beasts were vaguely seen coming out, and the ground was shaking frequently with their movements. The masters of the Khan family were so frightened that their souls almost flew away. There were not many ferocious beasts, probably only a few hundred, but from the aura they exuded, it was obvious that they were all comparable to the king level, or even the emperor level. Khan Budo's expression became wonderful. I just came here to mine. Why do I suddenly have to face such a big battle? Brother, he whispered, retreat quickly. The spiritual stone veins are indeed precious, but they are not as valuable as life. He now wishes he could grow a few more legs, so that he can return to the Khan family as quickly as possible, and live his own life happily. Brother, you take them away first. Jun Chang smiled and said, I will cover you. This Khan Budo was deeply moved and said, you and I are brothers, let's go together. Jun Changxiao's mouth twitched, because when Khan Budo spoke, he was already more than 10 feet away from him, and he was obviously ready to run away immediately. Brother, it's not too late to leave now. It will be troublesome if we are surrounded by a group of ferocious beasts. In that case, I will leave first. Khan Budo was not a person who hesitated, and hurriedly said, let's retreat. Swish, swish, swish. Without saying a word, the masters of the Khan family turned around and walked towards the periphery at a very fast speed, one faster than the other. After all, their strength was only at the level of Wuzong and Wuwang. Facing so many high-level spirit beasts, they naturally did not have the courage to compete with them. Sect Master Jiangzi retracted his spiritual thoughts and said, they have already gone out. Jun Changxiao put his hands on his forehead, then stroked the back of his head. The Jade Dragon questioning heaven sword appeared out of thin air and pierced into the body of the seven-colored Wolf King with a puff. A big devil smile appeared at the corner of his mouth, and he said, you can have fun now. Hoo hoo. As soon as the voice fell, the cultivation of the members of the war cavalry hall who had reached the level of Wu Wang broke out, instantly suppressing the hostility in the air. Trample. 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 Li Qingyang, Xiao Zuji, Li Fei, Shan Qi, Long Xiang, Song Zuanzhao, Zhao Hang and others stepped out. They clenched their fists, and their eyes were filled with an unprecedented strong fighting spirit. Although they often experienced training in the secret realm of life and death, those were illusions after all. Now that they are in the mountains and forests full of ferocious beasts, they should be able to kill them happily. Trample. Yi Xingchen walked out from the gap between his fellow disciples, stood in the front, and said coldly, leave this bunch of garbage to me. At that moment, the whole Wangu sect seemed to have unlocked the ancient seal, and transformed into demons from hell. The spirit beasts saw that humans suddenly became more terrifying than themselves, and they were immediately panicked. Go. Jun Changxiao waved his hand. Boom. Boom. As soon as the voice fell, there was an explosion from the side. A spirit beast comparable to the peak Martial King exploded and flew out until it hit the mountain wall and fell with a hole in its chest. He woody stood in place with a fist, but in his hand he held a hot crystal core. The moment he came into contact with the target, his fist turned into a claw, directly piercing the flesh and taking out the wrapped crystal core. The whole process was as fast as lightning. Judging from this move alone, He Woody, who had just broken through not long ago, was much stronger than an ordinary martial emperor. Boom. Boom. On the other side, Li Qingyang and others had already taken action one after another, and various energies burst out, rendering the ancient and long-standing mountains and forests. Roar, roar. The spirit beasts also received the order, and attacked the humans like crazy. Although they were very large in size, they were killed instantly when compared with the core disciples of the Eternal Ancient Sect in terms of momentum. Of course, the reality was also killed instantly. As long as the spirit beasts that were locked were comparable to the martial kings, they unlocked various death postures and fell to the ground. Cry. A sharp cry came from the sky, and dozens of eagle-like spirit beasts swooped down at high speed, aiming at Jun Changxiao, who was sitting on the colorful wolf king. To catch a thief, first catch the king. So particular. Jun Changxiao still sat on the colorful wolf king and did nothing, until dozens of eagle beasts were about to approach, and the barefoot little fairy jumped over, and her originally clear eyes suddenly became unusually sharp. The ultimate move. The eagle queen's eyes looked down. Seeing this, the eagle beasts rushing down were so scared that they flapped their wings repeatedly to break. Whoosh! At this moment, a sudden burst of heat broke out from the side, and a large palm condensed by flames grabbed it fiercely. Bang, bang, bang. The 5 fingers of the flaming hand came together, and the dozens of eagle beasts bound in it were all shattered, and even the scattered crystal cores were burned to ashes. Dare to hurt my master. The little dragon, who entered the second form, poked his head out of the flames, and said in a cold voice, "You are tired of living." Jun Chang smiled and said, "Control the temperature next time, don't burn the crystal core." Yes. Boom. On the other side, Ziozuji caught the giant ape's fist and threw it into the sky. He summoned the AWM sniper rifle from the space ring and fired several times in succession. The bullets hit the center of the eyebrows accurately until the last shot pierced the skull directly. This method of attacking with a brutal body and combined with hot weapons is absolutely pleasing to the eye. Compared with Yi Xingchen, it is obviously a bit fancy, because this guy rushed towards several spirit beasts, the sword light flashed, until it fell down, and all fell to the ground. In terms of killing, Yi has many methods, but his favorite is still simple and rough. Chapter 853. The real master explodes out. Deep in the Baekyu Mountains, a direct fight between humans and beasts was taking place, and the level was extremely high. Both sides working level and emperor level. Unfortunately, Khan Budo and the Khan family masters who were lucky enough to witness this feat had already run to the outskirts of the mountains, and they were unaware of the earth-shaking killing inside. Hoo hoo. Everyone in the Khan family bent over and gasped, secretly rejoicing that they had come out. Of course, they also knew that they could come out miraculously because the Eternal Ancient Sect was there to cover their retreat, so they were all grateful. Brother. Khan Budo stood outside and said sadly, "You and your disciples must come out safely. It doesn't matter if you get hurt. I will ask the best doctor and spend the most money to help you treat it." With more than a few hundred powerful spirit beasts, he didn't think Jun Changxiao could come out safely. In fact, deep in the mountains, the disciples of the Eternal Ancient Sect turned into hell demons and madly slaughtered the subordinates of the Baekyu king. Boom. Boom. One after another, the spirit beasts comparable to the king of martial arts fell to the ground, with blood and limbs scattered everywhere, like a purgatory on earth. The king level spirit beasts were dealt with by the disciples. The emperor level spirit beasts were held back by Jiangzi and others. There were many powerful middle level spirit beasts, but they were not enough in front of Dingxing Wang and Gongsun Heihei. The strongest fighting force of the Eternal Ancient Sect was dispatched, and it was no joke. Judging from the current situation, the spirit beasts in the Baekyu Mountains would not pose any threat to them unless thousands more came. Roar, roar. Suddenly, a roar came from the depths of the forest. The earth shook violently, and all kinds of fierce beasts rushed over frantically under the command. It seems that the king of Baekyu realized that this group of humans was very strong, and it was difficult to deal with them with higher level spirit beasts alone, so he could only use the beast tide to forcibly attack. Line up. Zhu Ringwei said in a deep voice. Swish, swish. 5,000 members of the war cavalry all lined up. Roar, roar. Soon, fierce beasts rushed over from the darkness. Their eyes were red, as if they were in a state of rampage. Zhang Yi shouted, "Eat fried rice." Swish, Swish. The members of the War Riders all waved their hands, took out a mouthful of prepared power fried rice from the space ring, and swallowed it. In the solemn environment, this scene was more like drinking a farewell wine. Clang. Zhang Yi offered the piercing cloud blade and shouted, the determination to break through the formation. There is death but no life. Kill kill. Kill. 5,000 members of the War Riders all shouted angrily, and then burst out with various spiritual energies, rushing towards tens of thousands of fierce beasts. Looking down from the sky, you can see that the big trees fell down in response to the momentum, and the originally complex terrain was flattened, turning into a battlefield for fighting. Crowds of people, crowds of beasts. They surged from left to right and collided together. Although the members of the War Riders Hall have not yet become martial kings, their strength is at the peak level of martial masters, especially with the blessing of various equipment. After eating power fried rice, the burst of power is extremely terrifying. It was just a short fight, and the thousands of beasts in the front were ruthlessly wiped out without even a chance to resist. Kill. Kill. Puff. Puff. Swords and shadows, spiritual energy everywhere. The beasts rushed up one after another, and they rushed to their deaths one after another. In just a moment, more than 10,000 people were killed and injured. The corners of Zilin Demon King's mouth twitched slightly. His men had fought with such well-equipped members of the War Riders Hall in the past, but now seeing them again, he realized that their strength was much stronger than before. If they fight again, his men will definitely die more miserably. Jun Changxiao was not surprised by the fierceness shown by the members of the War Riders Hall. Instead, he secretly said, if they all reach the Emperor level and enter the plain battlefield, wouldn't it be an attack on the city and capture the stronghold, and they will be invincible? Time is passing, and the fight continues. More and more ferocious beasts rushed out from the darkness, using their bodies and blood to add a bit of terror to this gloomy area. Whoosh. Suddenly, a gust of wind blew from the depths, carrying some kind of red powder. Not good. Zhang Yi said in surprise, it's poisonous. The area where the red powder spread under the howling wind was very wide. The members of the War Riders Hall who were fighting with the ferocious beasts were careless and were caught, and their faces suddenly changed. Despicable and shameless. Zilin Demon King said angrily. When he fought with King Baekyu, he had to retreat because he was poisoned by a toxin that made his body weak. Roar, roar. The group of ferocious beasts rushed even more fiercely. However, the group of humans who seemed to be poisoned suddenly took out a pill and swallowed it, and then their frowns suddenly stretched out, and they came with weapons raised to kill. They are not poisoned? Kill. Kill. The members of the War Riders Hall recovered and attacked again with weapons. It was surprising that the beasts could use poison, but they were not as good as the 9 Poisons Palace after all, and the detoxification pills were fully capable of doing the job. However, Jun Changxiao's eyes gradually became colder. Even such a mean means as poison was used. Who knows what other tricks would come later. In this case, don't blame me for being particular. Zuji. Jun Changxiao said in a deep voice, set up the cannon. Yes. Zio Zuji blasted a spirit beast away, landed on a high point, and summoned a field cannon, kicked the cannon barrel, and aimed it directly at the dark forest, where the beasts kept pouring out. Retreat. Zhang Yi shouted. Swish. 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 5,000 members of the War Riders Hall retreated one after another, subconsciously temporarily blocking their hearing. The Purple Ridge Demon King gloated, the subordinates of Baekyu's Ira will suffer heavy casualties this time. Fire the cannon. Jun Changxiao said coldly. Bang. The muzzle of the field artillery suddenly ejected shells, causing ripples, and finally dragged an arc, and landed in the group of ferocious beasts that were rushing forward one after another. They seemed to be aware of the danger, and their eyes were filled with despair before they died. Boom. The Khan family warriors who had just caught their breath were still waiting anxiously outside, praying for the Wangu sect, hoping to get out safely, and suddenly heard a huge boom, and were so shocked that they almost fell to the ground. Look! Someone exclaimed. Khan Budo and the Khan family masters all looked up, their eyes gradually widened, and they might pop out of their eye sockets at any time. In the sky, a mushroom cloud that was many times larger than the previous one slowly appeared. Boom. At this moment, another boom came, making their ears buzz. The second mushroom cloud soon appeared in the field of vision, and spatial ripples spread from that area, bringing gusts of wind. This. Kyan Budo rubbed his eyes and said in a daze, "What's going on?" Whoosh, whoosh whoosh, the deepest part of the mountain range was howling, and the airwaves were surging. Until everything calmed down, 2 deep pits with a radius of about 100 feet were blown out of the place where the trees were originally towering. Countless limbs and arms were scattered on the edge area, and the soil was dyed blood red. In front of the field artillery, Ziozuji quickly charged to shells and said, "Master, are you going to continue?" Jun Changxiao stretched out his hand to indicate that it was not necessary, then looked at the location of the deep pit, raised a smile at the corner of his mouth and said, "The main person has been blown out." A white-haired old man in a long gown, hunched over, walked out from the depths of the dark forest. His eyes were extremely sharp and even carried a strong sense of hostility. "This is the boss of the Baikyu mountain range, the Baikyu king." Boy. He stopped, stood in front of the big deep pit, looked at the field artillery with a gloomy face, and said, "What is this?" "It doesn't matter what it is. What matters is that you have annoyed me," Jun Changxiao said lightly. But suddenly, the space in front of him rippled. The old man who was hundreds of feet away suddenly appeared in front of him and stretched out his skinny hand with endless murderous intent and said coldly, "You have also angered this king." Chapter 854, Group Fight Against Baikyu King. Although King Baikyu is powerful, he is also very insidious. He always hides behind the scenes to manipulate his subordinates. As for the method of using poison, it is also learned from human beings. After the experience of the 9 Poison Palace, Jun Changxiao is very disgusted with the use of poison, so when he saw it playing like this, he had to use field artillery. The power of field artillery is not as strong as rocket launchers, but the killing range is extremely wide, and it is undoubtedly very cool to use it to bombard the ferocious beasts. Preliminary estimates. At least 20,000 to 30,000 ferocious beasts were wiped out on the spot after 2 shots. Seeing that his men were seriously injured, King Baikyu, who was hiding in the dark, finally couldn't sit still, so he personally took action to kill the human leader. Who? The skinny palm grabbed, carrying a strong murderous aura. Jun Changxiao has the style of a great general. Facing the spirit beast comparable to the martial saint, he was not panicked at all, and even wanted to laugh. But suddenly, the space in front of him rippled, and the feminine palm of the 5 absolute evil saints stretched out from it. Boom. The spiritual energy and the beast power collided, rolling up the airwaves. Swish. King Baikyu was blown away and landed in his original position. He looked at the old man who walked out of the space and said in a deep voice, "So you are a martial saint?" "No." Ding Xingwang shook his finger and corrected, "It's an evil saint." "Evil saint? Could it be an evil cultivator?" King Baikyu's eyes rolled, as if he was thinking about something. Jun Changxiao folded his hands and smiled. "If I had no preparation, would I come here to die?" "Boy." King Baikyu said with a gloomy face, "You are the helper invited by the exhibitionist. Are you coming to my territory to avenge him?" From this sentence, it can be heard that when the Purple Ridge Demon King surrendered it, he must have exposed his body. "No." Jun Chang smiled. "I'm here to recruit you. If a spiritual beast of this level is taken in for personal use, it will definitely be a golden thug." "Recruit me?" King Baikyu sneered. "Do you think it's possible? It didn't even obey the Purple Ridge Demon King, so it naturally wouldn't follow humans." "Not possible, but definitely." Jun Changxiao laughed, and his laugh was very creepy. But suddenly, a stream of light suddenly appeared around him, covering him and Jun Changxiao and others. Formation? King Baikyu's face changed slightly. Swish. There was no time to think, and he hurriedly flew back, while gathering a powerful force, and slamming towards the space barrier. Bang! The force of this punch was quite terrifying, but it only made the barrier shake slightly, and it didn't break directly. Hehe. Zendejin covered his face in the distance and laughed strangely. "The formation I set up, can you break it just by saying it?" It turned out that this bomb maniac was also here, and he deliberately didn't have a sense of presence, because when the sect master came, he ordered him to find an opportunity to set up a formation. When the people of the Wangu sect were fighting the beasts, he took action, leaving behind his flags wherever he went. What formation was he setting up? The Dragon Prison Formation. This formation comes from the ultimate chapter of the 32 formations of Kemen. According to the Zingayan continent, its level is definitely comparable to the Saint level. Of course, its function is only to bind the target, so Zenejin can barely set it up. As for the higher level offensive formations in the ultimate chapter, with his current strength at the level of the formation emperor, he is willing, but unable to do so. To put it bluntly, Jun Changxiao sent a large force over, and had already thought about how to deal with King Baekyu. But he didn't expect that after 2 shots, he would be blown out, and fall into the trap set in advance. Boom. King Baekyu didn't believe in evil, and once again gathered his strength to bombard the barrier, but he still couldn't break it, so he said angrily, "Cunning human." Hoo-hoo. At this moment, a gust of cold wind came from behind, and Ding Xingwang flew over, and the palm print containing the power of the 5 absolutes was madly performed. The target was trapped. Whether it can be subdued depends on strength. Bang, bang. The 5 absolute evil saints and the King of 100 Hills started fighting instantly. One was an evil saint and the other was a high quality spirit beast. It was difficult to tell who was better for a while. "You guys go too." Jun Chang smiled. Yes. Xiao Lang and Xiao Markson flew over. The two did not join in, but leaned on both sides to look for opportunities, and prepare to attack. Bang, bang. The spirit beasts trapped in the formation at the same time were still being abused by Leaking Guiyang, Yi Xingchen and others. However, because the real owner had come, Jun Changxiao ordered them not to kill him, but to injure him, and make him lose his combat effectiveness. Boom. Boom. The most fierce ones in the fierce fight were Ding Xingwang and King Baekyu. After all, they were both at the saint level, and the energy they exploded with their gestures was earth-shattering. "I blame myself," Jun Changxiao said. "Bring the rocket launcher." Yes. After catching the rocket launcher, Jun Changxiao put it on his shoulder, aimed it at King Baekyu, and said in a voice transmission, "Find a chance to separate, and I'll shoot him." Swish. Ding Xingwang took the opportunity to fly out. This is the opportunity. Jun Changxiao activated the special effects, and pulled the trigger without saying a word, and with a bang, the shell hit King Baekyu with incomparable accuracy. Fire rain technique. Feathers flying all over the sky. While the master was taking action, and Ding Liu was leaving, Xiao Lang and Xiao Markson used their skills one after another. Whoosh, swish, swish, swish. Dense fireballs and arrow-like feathers shot out. Swish. After a round of bombardment, King Baekyu flew out of the smoke in a panic, gathering his strength to bombard the space barrier again. He was not fatally injured by the multiple attacks, but he would be in trouble sooner or later if he continued like this, so the most urgent thing was to break the formation anyway. Unfortunately, after punching the barrier, he still couldn't do anything, and was entangled by Ding Xingwang again, so he had to fight with him. Xiao Lang and Xiao Markson stood far away. Jun Changxiao aimed at it again, after charging the shells. These three are really shameless. In terms of strength, King Baekyu may not be afraid of Ding Xingwang, but if someone next to him is always playing tricks on him, he will be very nervous. Boom. Boom. At the other end, dozens of spirit beasts in the formation were knocked to the ground by Leaking Guiyang and others. Although King Baekyu was angry, he was powerless. He even found that the formation barrier was constantly separating and shrinking, intending to confine himself to a certain space. Damn it. It roared angrily, lines appeared all over its body, and it instantly turned into a giant with a big head, but only one eye. So the original form is a big-eyed monster. Ding Xingwang sneered, and continued to perform hand seals. The power of the 5 absolutes spread wildly, turning into palm prints and ruthlessly blasting away. The humanoid King Baekyu could dodge by speed, but now that his original form has been transformed, his physique has increased countless times, and he was inevitably hit. Whoosh, whoosh. On the other side, Xiao Lang and Xiao Markson also used their skills one after another, and they could hit the target at will. Bang. Jun Changxiao fired a shot, and without even using special effects, he accurately hit the back of King Baekyu's head, and then said in despair, "Won't it be easier to take a beating if the body is enlarged? Is it stupid?" Chapter 855 The Obstacle. King Baekyu is not stupid. The real reason for activating the main body is not to get beaten better, but to greatly improve defense and strength. The humanization of beasts is just for convenience. Only after the main body is transformed can the real strength be exerted. Look, after enduring the sneak attack of Jun Changxiao and Xia Longlong, King Baekyu was left with light scars on the surface, but his internal body was fine. Hoo-hoo. He clasped his fists together and suddenly blasted towards the space barrier. What King Baekyu has to do now is not to fight, but to break the formation as soon as possible and get rid of the unfavorable situation. The strength of the 5 absolute evil saints is comparable to it. There are also Jun Changxiao shells, Xia Longlong and Xiao Marxen waiting at any time. Not to mention King Baekyu, even King Kai and Kyu will be tragic after a long time. Bang. After the main body is transformed, the strength is significantly improved. A punch hits the barrier, and the vibration brought is stronger than before. Master. Zendejan transmitted his voice. I can't stand it. The purpose of the dragon prison formation is to imprison. If the opponent keeps bombarding with powerful force, the foundation will definitely be shaken. Swish. Ding Xingwang rushed over and was about to perform the palm print. Whoosh. A big hand came with a strong wind. Swish. Ding Xingwang hurriedly dodged, frowning and thinking, this guy is stronger than before. Die. King Baekyu opened his other big hand and blasted towards Xia Longlong and Xia Marxen who were hiding him in the distance. With a huge body and falling into a state of rage, this palm blast came at a very fast speed. Xia Marxen was about to spread her wings to protect herself. Get out. Xia Longlong kicked her in the face, and the latter flew out immediately. The whole process happened in a flash. At this moment, the big hand had already pressed down with infinite power. Bang, bang, the flying Xia Marxen wave stabilized his body, covered his face and said angrily, you dare to kick me. The voice stopped abruptly, because Xia Longlong was sunken several feet underground at this moment. The young man's face was extremely ferocious, and it was obvious that he was injured by the palm of King Baekyu. It kicked me. Is it to save me? Xia Longlong said angrily. I said, you are a burden. Who? At this moment, King Baekyu stepped hard. Ding Xingwang could rescue him in time, but just as he was about to rush over, he stopped his steps because trample. Zilin Demon King stopped in front of Xia Longlong, raised his head and sneered, Baekyu boy, I will meet you. Defeated general, die. The power contained in King Baekyu's footprints is even stronger. Bang. At this moment, Zilin Demon King's clothes burst, revealing his strong body, and his hands suddenly raised, and a strong momentum burst out. Basic exercises, don't be stupid. Boom. The heavy and violent footprints were directly caught by Zilin Demon King, and then he shouted angrily, and flew up with power. Thump, thump, thump. King Baekyu took a few steps back on one foot, surprise in his eyes. The aura of this defeated opponent was far inferior to the last time, so why could he withstand his kick and even lift him up? If there must be an explanation, it is that the Purple Demon King is now a member of the Eternal Sect, and he has already recharged his account. Swish. At this moment, the 5 absolute evil saints came around from behind. 5 absolute palms. Whoosh. The evil energy burst out crazily, gathering into a palm print containing 5 kinds of power, and it came down like a mountain pressing down. Boom. King Baekyu was so huge that he couldn't dodge it at all. He immediately injured the palm print bombardment, and the 5 kinds of evil energy penetrated into his body and began to cause deep damage. The strength of Old Ding's 5 absolute palms lies in that it can penetrate the inner body, thus causing powerful damage, even for spirit beasts with thick skin and flesh. Hiss. The 5 kinds of evil energy swept through the body like a torrent of water. Although King Baekyu could still resist, his face had become ferocious. The Purple Demon King flew up, his eyes cold and stern. You are not worthy of being king in front of me. Boom. He punched the head of King Baekyu hard, knocking him back one after another, almost squatting on the ground. Although this was more due to the 5 absolute evil ki harassing the other party, after thousands of tempering in the Eternal Sect, the power of the Purple Demon King has exploded. There is no doubt. As long as the state, before being sealed, is restored, the strength will only be stronger. This is the real benefit of joining the Eternal Sect. Don't think that the Purple Demon King has been forbearing for that meal and for the intermediate beast pill and has been using Jun Changxiao to strengthen. I can't make it up anymore. 5 absolute palms. Ding Zing 1 condensed the palm print again. Boom. Under this palm pressure, King Bakyu finally couldn't bear it and sat on the ground directly. The 5 toxins in his body instantly broke through the layers of defenses and began to harass his internal organs and even went straight to the sea of consciousness. Get out of the way. Xiao Lang Lang stood up from the deep pit and said angrily, I'll burn it to death. Old Ding and the Purple Demon King hurriedly hid. Xiao Lang Lang raised his hand and the scorching flames spread out, instantly gathering around the Bakyu King, forming a violent vortex of wind. Dragon Flame Storm. Whoosh! The violent flames suddenly erupted wildly, forming a sky-high column of fire. The temperature in the formation rose sharply, causing Leaking Gyang and others to condense spiritual armor to protect their bodies. Ka. The scorching flames collided violently with the formation barrier and began to gradually distort. Zendejin looked ugly and had to remove it. Swoosh! The moment the barrier disappeared, the dragon flame storm rose directly into the sky without any obstacles, and it seemed to be heading straight for the sky. Kai Budo and others all widened their eyes. Who can tell us what is going on in here? Bang! Suddenly, a loud bang was heard. The sky-high pillar of fire suddenly exploded, and the hot air waves swept over, blowing everyone's cheeks hot. Deep in the mountains, the hot air waves gradually dissipated, revealing a charred area of about several hundred feet. Leaking Gyang, Xiao Zuji and others successively removed their spiritual armors and looked at everything around them, and their mouths twitched. Xiao Lang Lang's dragon flame storm was too fierce. Swish! Jun Changxiao dispersed the air wall in front of him and said in surprise, the dragon flame technique is really powerful. Plop! Xiao Lang Lang sat down on his butt. The full outbreak of the skills that had just been learned not long ago consumed all the energy in his body. Now he was not only injured, but also entered a serious weak period. Hey! The little fairy landed in front of him and said indifferently, are you okay? You are a burden. Xiao Lang Lang's eyelids fluttered before he finished speaking, and he fell to the ground and fainted, and his body returned to the lizard shape. The little fairy carried it on her back and said with a curled lip, if you were not unconscious, I would definitely not let you go. Swish! It landed in front of the master and dropped it. Jun Changxiao was sure that Xiao Lang Lang was just unconscious and was fine, so he stood up and flew up, landing in the explosion area of the dragon flame storm. King Bakyu had entered human form, lying in a deep pit with his whole body burnt black. This guy was not only severely blown up by the dragon flame storm, but his internal organs were also severely eroded by the 5 absolute evil key. At this moment, he was already in a state of serious injury. Being trapped in the formation and being beaten by the eternal ancient sect, it was really good that he didn't die directly. Can I take it? Jun Changxiao took out the high quality leader ball. He had used it to subdue the Purple Ridge Demon King in the past, but unfortunately he failed. Go. Jun Changxiao said, leader ball. Ding. It hit King Bakyu's head directly, and when the leader ball landed, the Tekai pattern suddenly emitted light, and then enveloped, and took it in. Jun Changxiao looked confused and said, is this a success? Has he surrendered? If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 856 Brother, I love you. King Bakyu was severely injured. Jun Changxiao took out the head ball just to give it a try. He didn't have any hope at all. After all, he failed to subdue the Purple Ridge Demon King that year. But, the less optimistic he is, the more surprises he will give himself. Damn it. Jun Changxiao said speechlessly, if I had known it would be so easy, I would have come alone. Why would I have brought so many people with me? Why would I have bothered so much? The system said the host was able to subdue this beast because the other party was seriously injured, otherwise it would never succeed. In that case, the Purple Ridge Demon King was covered with wounds at the time. Why didn't he succeed in subduing it? Jun Changxiao asked. The system was silent for a while and said, maybe because he came from the upper realm, his potential strength is relatively high, so the head ball can't be taken down. Although the explanation is a bit far-fetched, it actually makes no sense. After all, in terms of bloodline and hardcore strength, King Baekyu is definitely not comparable. The reason why the Purple Ridge Demon King was able to run away that year was because the other party had just sneaked down from the upper realm and his strength had not been completely restored. And secondly, he used some despicable means. Swish. Jun Changxiao took back the head ball and said with a smile, I'm so happy. Baekyu King is comparable to the saint level. He united so many people and used formations to block it. Now that he has become his contracted beast, his strength has undoubtedly increased. Sect Master Li Qingyang said, how do we deal with these spirit beasts? Tie them all up. The boss of Baekyu Mountain Range is controlled by me, and these subordinates must be controlled by me. Go. Jun Changxiao ordered, take away the crystal cores scattered on the ground, as well as the skin, bones, and flesh that can be taken away. Yes. The members of the War Cavalry Hall began to clean up the battlefield. There are many crystal cores and beast entities scattered in the areas that are not affected by the shells and flames. It is not a small harvest to collect them all. Master Kian. Jun Changxiao said gratefully, you are really my big brother. If he hadn't said that he wanted to dig for spirit stone veins, he would not have come to Baekyu Mountain Range, let alone subdue a saint level spirit beast. Wait. There are also spirit stone veins. Jun Chang smiled and said, should there be? Swish. With a wave of the high-level leader ball, the Baekyu King who had just been taken in for treatment flew out immediately, and then half lying on the ground, he said weakly, greetings. Meet the master. The beasts subdued by the leader ball are equivalent to concluding a contract, and will only obey the master mindlessly without any resistance. Is there really a spiritual stone vein in this mountain range? Jun Chang smiled. Yes. Baekyu King said, but I have dug it out first, leaving only the empty vein to lure humans. Dug it out? Jun Chang smiled and said, where is it? Baekyu King said weakly, in my nest. Bang. Before he finished speaking, the Zilin Demon King in red underwear came quickly and knocked him to the ground with a punch, then raised his foot and stepped on him fiercely and said angrily, you are not very awesome, you are not very arrogant, get up and fight with me. Jun Changxiao was speechless. When the opponent was in full state, I didn't see you so active. Although King Baekyu was his contracted beast now, he still had a personal grudge with Master Ziteng, so it was reasonable for him to vent his anger. Bang, bang. The Purple Ridge Demon King kicked a few more times and was pulled away by Li Qingyang and Xiao Ziji. Jun Changxiao said, we have scolded and beaten each other. From today on, the grudges between you are written off. You must help and care for each other in the sect. Zilin Demon King was stunned and said, are you going to take in this despicable guy? Not taking him in, but killing him? You must kill him. Jun Changxiao shook his head and said, Master Z, don't act on impulse. After all, we are going to work together to do something big. We naturally know how to cherish a strong helper. Speaking of career, Zilin Demon King's mind turned around and said coldly, for the sake of the sect master, I won't bother with you. Swish. Jun Changxiao put the bruised and swollen Baekyu King into the head ball and said, rest where you are. Yes. All the disciples relaxed. It feels good. I haven't had such a good fight in a long time. The members of the War Cavalry Hall gathered in twos and threes, still discussing the previous battle, and the fighting spirit in their eyes had not completely subsided. They have been training strictly in the military way, and naturally cultivated the blood of soldiers, to go to the battlefield and kill the enemy. Li Qingyang, Xiao Ziji and others also had a lot of fun fighting. After all, fighting with real beasts is more exciting than fighting the beasts in the secret realm of life and death. An hour later, Jun Changxiao summoned the king of Baekyu and ordered it to lead the way to the nest where he lived. It was a natural cave with a complicated environment. When Jun Changxiao led the core disciples in and entered the largest stone cave, they all widened their eyes because the field of vision was full of natural spiritual stones. The picture was like a group of explorers pushing open the ancient stone door and showing a golden treasure. The thief was shocked and exciting. Jun Changxiao blinked his eyes and breathed quickly. There must be at least 1,000,000 of them. Master. King Baekyu said, only 1/10 of them are stored here, and there are still 9 other stone caves. There is only 1/10 here, and there are 9 more. 1,000,000 for each. 10 similar caves equals 10 times 1,000,000, which equals 100 million. Plop. Jun Changxiao fell down with his eyes rolled up before he could catch his breath. The system crashed and said, 10 times 1,000,000. How did he calculate 100 million? No. The sect master fainted. Quick, quick, quick. Pinch the Renzang. In the 10th cave, Jun Changxiao put all the millions of natural spirit stones into the space ring. He squatted on the stone, one hand on top, one hand covering his face, his mouth crooked with laughter. It's true that there is not much money. The spirit stone veins deep in the mountains are very large, and the number of spirit stones alone is as many as tens of millions. It's rich, it's Rick. Jun Changxiao was still squatting on the stone and grinning. Such a large number of spirit stones is definitely a huge fortune for the sect, and it will definitely improve the overall strength by a large margin. Big brother. Jun Changxiao said with a smile. I love you. The system said, aren't you going to give some to others? I came with big brother to dig for spiritual stone veins, but in the end he ran away, and there is no ore in the veins. What can I get? Jun Changxiao looked innocent. The system said, the host is really righteous. Jun Changxiao shook his head and said, these natural spiritual stones can improve the overall strength of the sect, and can allow Li Qingyang and others to quickly break through to the peak of Martial King. I can only apologize to Big Brother for the time being. The wealthy Khan family master may be grateful to you for allowing him to escape danger. The system said, this is true. Go home. Jun Changxiao said with a smile. He subdued a spiritual beast comparable to the saint level, and earned tens of millions of natural spiritual stones. The harvest of this trip to the Baekyu Mountains was so huge that on the way back, Jun Changxiao couldn't help singing in a flowery way. Come on, have fun. Anyway, there is plenty of time. Chapter 857 Brother, you must accept this spirit stone. Outside the Baekyu Mountains, Khan Budo was still waiting anxiously. Although there was no movement inside, he still didn't dare to go in. Master. A master said, I'm afraid that sect master Jun can't come out. Let's leave. Yes. Another person said, it's been several hours. If he was alive, he would have escaped long ago. Brother. Khan Budo faced the Baekyu Mountains and cried out in grief, it was my elder brother who harmed you. But, don't worry. He said with a firm look, my elder brother will definitely build the best tomb for you and your disciples, and bring your descendants to worship during festivals. Brother, that's not necessary. A voice came from his ear. Khan Budo was startled, and turned his head quickly, to see Jun Changxiao standing in front of him chewing an apple. He was so shocked, that he stepped back again and again, and said in a trembling voice, are you a human or a ghost? Human. Jun Changxiao said speechlessly. Khan Budo also realized that he had a shadow at this time, so he strode forward, put his hands on his shoulders, and said in ecstasy, brother, you are not dead. Luckily survived. Jun Chang smiled. While speaking, Li Qingyang and others walked out of the mountains one after another. Although they were stained with blood, they were all in high spirits. The Khan family masters were stunned. Judging from the number of people, the Wangdu sect seemed to have no casualties. What did they do in there for such a long time? This nothing was used wrongly. It should be that there were no casualties at all. Although my younger brother has dealt with some of the fierce beasts, there are more powerful ones inside. On the way, Jun Chang smiled and said, so I can only take the disciples out quickly. As for the spiritual stone veins, I think it's better for you not to mine them, so as not to lose your life in them. He took all the ore, so he must be embarrassed to say it out loud, so he can only use lies to perfunctory. Khan Budo sighed and said, I didn't expect that this would be a trap set by the beasts. I naturally didn't dare to take the spiritual stone vein. I'm happy that my brother has returned safely. Moreover, he stopped and said solemnly, if I hadn't accompanied you on this trip, I'm afraid that my life would have been buried in the Baekyu Mountains. The truth. If I hadn't asked Jun Changxiao for help and brought the strong men from other sects, I would have become mud under the feet of the beasts. To express his gratitude, Khan Budo handed over a space ring and said, "Brother, there are 100,000 natural spiritual stones in it. Just consider it as the lost compensation for your wasted trip with me, brother." Jun Changxiao declined. "I can't take it." He really didn't intend to take it. After all, he felt a little guilty about getting 10 million spiritual stones, and he still cared about 100,000. "Brother, you must accept this spiritual stone." Khan Budo had to force it. After a fight, Jun Changxiao could only accept it reluctantly. The group returned along the same route, while those spirit beasts under King Baekyu who were still quite powerful turned into human forms, following in the dark with bruised faces and noses. The boss had surrendered, so they could only submit. Counting, there were at least 30 to 50 of them who were comparable to the king level, and 7 or 8 of them who were at the emperor level. If they were to be included in the Spirit Beast Hall, their strength would be further enhanced. In this way, Jun Changxiao was more confident to fight in the plain battlefield. After 2 days of traveling, when they reached the fork in the road, Khan Budo bowed and said, "Brother, see you later." "Big brother." Jun Changxiao said, "Goodbye." After Khan Budo left, the batches of ferocious beasts lurking in the dark could finally appear openly. King Baekyu also had a large army of ferocious beasts, about 200,000. Jun Changxiao planned to stuff them all into Tegu Mountain, and then feed them with beast pills. Although there were not many disciples in the Eternal Ancient Sect, the size of the beast army had reached 600,000 to 700,000, which was enough to accomplish great deeds. It's a pity that sect master Jun is focused on developing the sect, and has no intention of competing for world domination. The reason why he recruited the beasts and subdued King Baekyu was to enter the Soul Clan continent in the future, and to smoothly implement the robbery plan. Wongu Sect. Jun Changxiao returned and placed 200,000 beasts deep in Tegu Mountain. Sect Master Zhu Ringwei said, "The beasts are fierce because they fight in the wild all year round. If we keep them in captivity like this, they will lose their hostility over time." "That makes sense." Jun Changxiao said. "Who is stronger, a captive lion or a wild lion? Can be guessed by the toes. What do you suggest?" "In my opinion, it is better to conduct unified training, so that they can use tactics proficiently." Jun Changxiao's mouth twitched. "Training humans can no longer satisfy me, the leader of the War Cavalry Hall, and I began to have the idea of training the beasts. Under normal circumstances, Zhu Ringwei would definitely not think about it, but since the beasts can obey orders, it is not a bad idea to conduct military training. Moreover, if they are really trained, the combat effectiveness formed cannot be ignored." "Okay." Jun Chang smiled and said, "Leave it to you, Master." Zhu Ringwei thought for a while and said, "That psychic cat can speak human language and communicate with fierce beasts. Can it be equipped to my War Riders Hall?" "No problem." Jun Chang smiled. In the room, the psychic cat hugged the door tightly, crying and shouting, "I don't want to leave, I want to stay." Bang. The little magic fairy pressed it to the ground, rubbed its face against the floor, and said, "This is the master's order, you must obey." After being abused, the psychic cat was very comfortable, and reported to the War Riders Hall with tears in his eyes. Training fierce beasts is undoubtedly very challenging. However, Jun Changxiao believes that with Zhu Ringwei and Tao Yun, there should be no big problem. Next, sitting on the chair, one hand supporting the side of his face, he murmured, "It's time to consider distributing natural spirit stones, so that the disciples can improve faster." On the day of the epic mission settlement, relying on sufficient resources, core disciples such as Li Qingyang are still confident that they can break through the peak of the Martial King, but there is no hope of breaking through the Emperor level, unless there is a higher elixir formula. Martial Emperor Pill. Martial Emperor Pill. Jun Changxiao opened the high level mall and looked through the products carefully. He did not find any high level elixir formulas to improve the realm, so he could only focus on other things. Wait. His eyes were on a thing called Surge's Talisman Formula, so he clicked on it and presented an introduction. Item: Surge's Talisman Formula. Introduction. After purchasing, you can obtain the method of refining the Surge's Talisman. Function: the Surge's Talisman refined. By crushing it will improve the realm by one major level on the original basis. Advantages. After using it, you will have a higher realm and stronger strength, and it can also facilitate peeping into high-level martial arts, which is beneficial to realm breakthrough. Disadvantages. The user must be at the highest level of a realm. The effect lasts for 1 hour. When the time limit ends, the realm will be lowered. The effect lasts for 1 hour. Price: 10,000 contribution points. Jun Changxiao touched his chin and said, "Can King Guiyang and Zhu Ji enter the plain battlefield after using it?" The system said, "It should be possible." Bought it. Ding. The host consumed 10,000 contribution points and obtained the formula of the surge symbol X1, which has been transferred to the space ring. Ding. Contribution value 24,480/50,000. Chapter 858. Wrong focus. After buying the formula, it will be automatically matched to the talisman pavilion. Jun Changxiao looked at the newly appeared Surge talisman and immediately listed the refining data. Main materials: 120/5 medium grade spirit beast crystal cores, 36/5 medium grade spirit beast crystal cores, and 21/1 medium grade spirit beast crystal cores. Auxiliary materials: 0/1 Wu Wang Dan. Right. Jun Changxiao said with satisfaction. This is scientifically based. Wu Wang Dan has the effect of improving realms, and the Surge talisman also has the effect of temporarily improving realms. It is completely acceptable to use the former as an auxiliary material. Unlike the previously refined Force Increase talisman, which requires a healing pill, and the Insight talisman requires a body shaping pill. It's ridiculous. The system said. Shouldn't the hosts focus be on the fact that Wu Wang Dan is more precious and more difficult to refine than the healing pill and the body shaping pill? Jun Changxiao was stunned, and his expression gradually collapsed. Damn. To refine a Surge talisman, you actually need a Wu Wang Dan. The system said speechlessly. This reflex arc. If you want to temporarily have a high realm, you must consume a Wu Wang Dan, which means that a disciple of the sect will not be able to become a Wu Wang in the fastest time. The materials of the healing pill and other pills are sufficient and can be produced in large quantities. But the Wu Wang Dan has been out of stock since it was refreshed, and there are still many disciples waiting in line to take it. If you use it to refine the talisman, it must be painful. Are you kidding me? Jun Changxiao hugged his head and collapsed and said, "This is stupid." Now, how much he longs to use detoxification pills and high-level key gathering pills as auxiliary materials without rigorous scientific basis. The Surge talisman is a good thing. Its function is not only reflected in the fact that it can allow users to improve their realm in a short period of time, but also in the feeling brought by the realm improvement. To be precise, the new understanding of martial arts brought by the realm improvement is the biggest feature of the Surge talisman, which is a huge wealth that cannot be measured by money and resources. However, it requires Wu Wang Dan to be refined, which really makes Jun Changxiao a little collapsed and a little difficult to accept. The system said, "It's better to have it than not to have it. Don't be too depressed, host." What's more, Old Wei and his team have been planting the materials for the Wu Wang Dan. Sooner or later, they will reach saturation. Being able to comfort the host in this way shows that after long-term contact, there is actually a sincere feeling. That's right. Jun Changxiao was relieved. Now we just have to wait for the new batch of materials to mature and use the Wu Wang Dan to refine the Surge talisman. There is no shortage of crystal cores, but there is a shortage of auxiliary materials. Master. Ningdu woke up and reported, "It's the day to recruit disciples again. Do you have any special instructions?" "No." Jun Changxiao said, "Just do it as usual." Got it. A few days later, the Wangu sect started recruiting disciples. Because of its growing reputation, the number of young people who come from all over the world to sign up every month is maintained at several thousand, but very few actually pass. Gradually, the difficulty of entering the Wangu sect spread throughout the Xinjiang continent. Jun Changxiao is not very short of disciples now, so he also follows the mode of better to have less than too much. As for the monthly strength assessment of the sect, the small competition of disciples every 3 months, and the annual competition of disciples, although it has been mentioned for a long time in the text, they will also be held at a fixed time. except for the annual competition, which determines the promotion of disciples to the inner sect. Jun Changxiao generally does not participate in other tests. As the size of the sect grows, it must test its ability to operate on its own. If the sect master makes decisions on any trivial matters, wouldn't it be a waste of time to raise a group of elders? Of course. This is related to Jun Changxiao's deliberate actions, because while completing the main task, he also has another task. One day, he will be a hands-off shopkeeper, put aside fame and fortune, travel the world with his beloved, and live a life that only envy mandarin ducks but not immortals. Whenever I think of this, the system will pour cold water on me in a timely manner. With your attributes that are more amazing than a psychic cat, it is impossible to achieve it in your lifetime. You know shit. Jun Changxiao said, I just put my mind on the sect. I dismantled the bomb that day, and I was definitely at the level of Wei Liao. After recruiting disciples, the Eternal Sect entered a relatively calm stage again. Li Qingyang, Xiao Zuji and others successively received a large number of natural spirit stones and focused their minds on cultivation. The master said that, if he broke through the peak Martial King in half a year, he would take him to the plain battlefield. The place that could make the master injured and unconscious must be full of excitement, so it also greatly stimulated everyone's desire to break through faster. With the high-level spiritual roots of Li Qingyang and Xiao Zuji, as long as they are given enough resources, it is very stable to break through the small level. In the next few months, disciples broke through and moved towards the peak Martial King. Of course, the first person to reach this level was naturally Pei Niu, whose starry sky and moon were scattered. No. Yi Xingchen was in the secret realm of time and space and said irritably, it is impossible to break through to the Martial Emperor in 3 months. He had experience, but there was no time. If Jun Changxiao had delayed it for a few more months, there would be no problem. It can't be delayed. The system reminds the host every day not to forget the suppression by the Earth character strongman, so that the closer to the epic task settlement period, the stronger the desire for revenge. Sect Master. One day, Wei Liao came to see, a new batch of medicinal materials has matured. Hurry up and bring it here. When the medicinal materials for refining the Martial King pill were put into the space ring, Jun Changxiao directly refined it with one click. Ding. The first pill was refined, and the talisman cabinet was opened again, and the confirmation button for refining the Surge's talisman was clicked. About half an hour, the hot Surge's talisman was refined. Jun Changxiao held it in his hand and thought to himself, can I use this thing? It was introduced that it can only be used when reaching the highest level of a certain realm. He is now at the peak Emperor level, which theoretically meets the requirements. But there are 2 epic tasks. If the realm does not improve after crushing it, it will be a mess. Try it. Pa. Jun Changxiao crushed it decisively, but there was no reaction. So he squatted on the ground with his head in his hands, crying without tears. One Wu Wang pill. So many crystal cores are wasted like this. Am I a cheap fool? Ding. At this time, another Wu Wang pill came out of the furnace. Jun Changxiao continued to refine it and called Yi Xingchen over, saying, break through the peak Wu Wang? Yes. It just so happens that I have a talisman that can temporarily improve the realm. You can try it. Jun Changxiao handed over the Surge's talisman. Temporarily improve the realm. Yi Xingchen crushed the talisman with surprise and shock, and the spiritual energy in the Danshan spiritual core began to transform immediately, and the realm also stepped from the peak Wu Wang to the Wu Huang in one fell swoop. This, Yi Niu stood there in a daze. It was not uncommon to enter the Martial Emperor level, but the whole process made him feel the same as when he was promoted to the Emperor level. Magical. Incredible. Pei Xingchen, who gradually calmed down, affirmed in his heart, this kind of talisman that instantly improves the realm must come from the upper realm. Upper realm? No, there is no. Don't talk nonsense. Oh, right. Jun Changxiao reminded, the talisman is effective for 1 hour, and after it disappears, the realm will also drop from the original level by 1 level, which will last for 1 hour. After the time limit was up, Yi Xingchen's realm really fell from the Martial Emperor to the peak Martial Sect level. It felt like falling from the sky into the abyss in an instant. The most tragic thing was Jun Changxiao, who had fallen from the peak emperor level to the peak king level at this moment, and then lay on the chair, saying with no hope in life, "You didn't give me the enhancement effect, but you got the side effect." Chapter 859, Creating an Opportunity for Su Gaosheng. After testing by Yi Xingchen, the Surge's talisman really has the ability to improve the realm. Moreover, after the breakthrough, there is also a similar feeling of realm improvement, which will undoubtedly bring great benefits to the user. In short, the Surge's talisman strength improvement is only secondary, and the key is to experience the process of breaking through the realm first. Although it does not help warriors to achieve a great realm breakthrough immediately, with this kind of experienced experience, the comprehension and time will surely be greatly shortened. Not bad. Jun Changxiao was very satisfied. With the Surge's talisman, there is no need to deliberately chase the Wu Huang pill. After all, it may not be brushed out. However, because Wu Huang pills are used as materials, it is destined to be unable to be mass-produced for the time being. Let's refine 100 first. After refining hundreds of Wu Huang pills, Jun Changxiao checked 100 to start production. As for those Wu Huang pills that were not used, they were left to the disciples, to let them break through the king level. The Wangu sect is now at the Wu Huang level, and it is steadily improving every month. Even the first-class sects can't compare. It's really crazy to open up to this extent. After the work is done, Sect Master Jun habitually clicked on the epic mission, which showed that there were 3 months left before the settlement date. It's almost time. Almost time. Who should we take into the plain battlefield? Sect leaders such as Elder Ding and Jiangzi must be included. Zilin and Baiqiu must also follow. What made Jun Changxiao hesitant was whether to take Li Qingyang and others. After the epic mission was settled, they might not break through to the martial emperor, but they might be able to sneak in with the Surge's talisman, but they could only stay in there for an hour. If something unexpected happens, and we can't come back before the time limit expires, it will definitely be dangerous. Jun Changxiao tapped his fingers on the table and said, "We have to think carefully." He decided to let his disciples choose whether to go or not, so he called Li Qingyang and others over. Sect Master Xiao Zuji made the first choice and said with a firm look, "Disciple is willing to go. Disciple is willing to go." Li Qingyang, Li Fei, Shanqi and others expressed their opinions one after another. Obviously, in the pursuit of excitement, they can ignore all dangers. Jun Changxiao said with a smile, "In that case, then break through the peak of the martial king within 3 months. Yes." Everyone shouted in unison. After that, they practiced harder. Sect Master. One day, Li Luoqiu walked in and said, "Xiaomo sent a message that she will go to Yunling Mountain Range with the outer disciples to train in 10 days. Yunling Mountain Range is the special training ground of Taixuan Holy Sect, and there are many fierce beasts in it. Every year, the outer disciples are organized to fight. Whoever kills more fierce beasts within the specified time will receive a generous reward." Jun Changxiao touched his chin and said, "This is a good opportunity for Xiaomo to be promoted. Notify the Purple Hole Master and let him take the members to the Yunling Mountain Range." Yes. Li Luoqiu left. Not long after, the Purple Hole Master went to the Yunling Mountain Range with his men. Jun Changxiao gave only one task, which was to create opportunities and provide a stage for Su Xiaomo as much as possible, so that she could shine in the outer sect training. It would definitely take time to climb up by yourself. If you help at the critical moment, you will definitely climb faster. In the forest, led by a martial emperor level elder, 500 outer disciples of the Taixuan Holy Sect marched towards the Yunling Mountains. Their eyes flashed with excitement, nervousness, and anxiety. The sect conducts a practical training every year. If you perform well, you will not only be rewarded, but also gain merit points. As long as you have enough merit points, you can enter the inner gate from the outer gate. The easiest way for the outer gate of the Taixuan Holy Sect to be promoted to the inner gate is to get excellent results in the annual sect competition. Those outer disciples who are diligent and hardworking, but not too talented, can enter by accumulating merit points. Junior brother Su. On the road, a fair-looking man said proudly, "Although the Yunling Mountains are dangerous, as long as you follow me, I guarantee that you will be safe." Su Xiaomo smiled and said, "Thank you, Senior brother Sun, for your support. He muttered in his heart, you are just a martial arts master. Do you really think you are a strong man? As a martial arts king, he relied on the hidden cultivation technique to suppress his realm to the level of a newly entered martial artist. He was hanging out with low-level outer disciples all day, which was really a bit aggrieved. There was no way. In order to complete the task assigned by the sect master, Suzaromo had to go undercover to the end. Rest where you are. Not long after walking, the leading elder shouted, Junior brother Su. Sun Yingquan waved his hand and said, come and give me a shoulder massage. Okay. Suzaromo ran over with a smile, and then began to punch skillfully, and said with a smile, brother Sun, is your strength okay? Yeah. Sun Yingquan closed his eyes and said, not bad. If it were Yi Di, he would be able to smash his scapula with one punch. Therefore, Suzaromo, who is so versatile and can put down his status, is simply born to be an undercover. Yingquan. The leading elder frowned and whispered, you are here to experience, not to enjoy. Dat. Sun Yingquan smiled and said, just for a while. Hey. Elder Sun shook his head, then glanced at Suzaromo and said, after returning to the sect, you can go to the spiritual energy formation to practice for 3 days. The spiritual energy formation is the place where Taixu and Shengzang practices, and there is spiritual energy several times higher than the outside world. Although it is far inferior to the gathering spirit formation of the eternal ancient sect, it is a holy place in the eyes of the outer disciples, and they are trying their best to get in. Thank you, Elder Sun. Suzaromo was overjoyed and punched harder. Sure enough, the strategy is right. As long as we serve Sun Yingquan well, we will naturally be valued by Elder Sunday. While thinking, he looked at the beautiful girl sitting on a huge rock in the distance, and said to himself, she is the granddaughter of Elder Zaya. We must find an opportunity to get in touch with her. The way Suzaromo climbed up was to establish good relationships with all the disciples who had connections with the top leaders of Taixu and Holy Sect. Let's go. The disciples of Taixu and Holy Sect rested for a while, and continued to head to Yunling Mountains. At this time, Master Zi had already arrived with his men. Old Niu. What should we do? Let him be good at fighting, and find a way to provide Suzaromo with a stage to show off, which is a bit of a test of his IQ. Niu Leo said, the sect master said, that we only need to create some trouble for the Taixu and Holy Sect. When necessary, I can transform into a physical form to bully them. That's fine. Zilin Demon King said, it's decided. King. The target is coming. Hide well, don't get discovered. Swish. Swish. All the masters of the spirit beast all hid themselves. Elder Sun had never thought that there were so many powerful spirit beasts hidden in the Yunling Mountains. He led his disciples in and said with his hands behind his back, this training will last for 5 days. You can go together or alone. When the time comes, gather here. Yes. All the disciples shouted in unison. The training begins. When Elder Sun shouted this, the 500 disciples immediately dispersed. Some went into the depths of the forest alone, while others went in groups of 3 or 5. Chapter 860. A group of unqualified actors. Junior brother Su. Sun Yingquan shook his head and clenched his fists and said, let's go. Senior brother will take you to kill the beast. Suzaromo followed behind, not forgetting to flatter him. I heard that senior brother Sun has already comprehended the great success of the 12 Way Chrysanthemum sword technique. I wonder if junior brother can witness it today. Yes. Sun Yingquan said proudly. Senior sister Zaya. Suzaromo waved her hand and smiled. Do you want to team up? Not interested. Zaya Xuan said indifferently, and left without paying any attention to the two. Sun Yingquan rolled his eyes at the woman and said, you are so cold all day long, as if everyone owes her money. Senior brother Sunday. Suzaromo scratched his head and said, senior sister Zaya has the body of Zio Bingshan, so it is understandable that she is cold. Huh. Sun Yingquan curled his lips and said, that person back then also had the Taixu and Bingshan body, but he was not so cold. That person? Who? Suzaromo asked. Sun Yingquan leaned in and whispered, it's Lu Qian who was expelled. There's an order not to talk about her. Don't spread it around. Understand? Understand. Suzaromo nodded hurriedly, thinking to himself, it turns out that the senior sister has such a strong physique. No wonder she has no interest in ancient physiques in the Death Tower. During this time of undercover, he has learned a lot of things. Taixun Shengzong started with the fragments of Taixun Binxinja left by Elder Taixun. Although it has blossomed everywhere in martial arts now, the main focus is still on ice. If a disciple has an ice physique, he will be trained at any level. For example, Xia Xuan. Although her grandfather is an elder, he also has a small ice physique. His status as an outer disciple is only temporary. When his strength is improved, he will be an inner disciple or even a personal disciple. Senior Brother Sunday. Suzaomo asked tentatively. The Taixun Binxin physique is one of the strongest physiques in the ice system. Since Lu Qian has such a strong physique, how could she be expelled? She broke the rules. Sun Yingquan said. Oh. Suzaomo didn't ask too much, fearing that asking too much would arouse suspicion. Roar. At this moment, the roar of the beast came. A huge tiger beast stood in front of him, with a strong violent aura in his eyes. Junior Brother Su. Sun Yingquan offered his 3-foot green sword and said proudly, today, Senior Brother will let you see the 12-way chrysanthemum sword technique. Okay. Suzaomo hurriedly stepped aside, although he was looking forward to it. But his spiritual thoughts were released silently, catching Xia Xuan, who was gradually moving away from him, and he thought to himself, I don't know if the sect master has sent anyone here. Boy. Suddenly, the voice of the Purple Ridge Demon King came to his ears. This hall master is here. Do you want this kid to die or make him useless? Suzaomo's mouth twitched slightly. It's just an external sect training. How can he kill someone? Besides, if I follow him, I will die, and my way to promotion will be gone, and I might even be unlucky. Master Z. Suzaomo transmitted a message. Let's wait and see. Okay. Chrysanthemums bloom. Chrysanthemums dance. Sun Yingquan used the 12-way chrysanthemum sword technique, and sword shadows appeared all over the sky. Although the moves were very fancy, they were just that level. Puff. Puff. The roadblock beast was only at the level of martial artist, and was quickly solved. Suzaomo stood by and praised, Brother Sun's swordsmanship is exquisite. It is really amazing. Swish. Sun Yingquan put away his sword and said proudly, it's just a warm-up. Suzaomo smiled and said, with Brother Sun's superb swordsmanship and strength, he will definitely win the first place in this Yunling mountain range training. Of course. Sun Yingquan waved his hand and said, let's go. The Purple Ridge Demon King hiding in the dark saw that this kid killed his own kind, and was so arrogant, and almost couldn't help rushing out and beating him into a meat paste on the spot. Calm down, calm down. In order to ensure that the amount of beast pills does not decrease next month, the task given by that guy must be completed, and Suzaomo's performance must be performed smoothly. Roar. Boom boom boom. Deep in the Yunling Mountains, 500 outer sect disciples have begun their 5-day actual combat training. Fighting scenes can be seen everywhere, and fierce beasts can be seen being killed everywhere. These fierce beasts are not under the command of the Purple Ridge Demon King, but they are of the same kind after all. Seeing them die one after another, his eyes are getting redder and redder. Sect Master. In the Wangu sect, Li Qingyang was a little worried and said, after all, Master Z is a beastman. The outer sect training of the Taixun sect this time is mainly to kill fierce beasts. I'm afraid that things will be messed up at that time. Jun Chang smiled and said, it shouldn't be, right? Something happened. Li Luoqiu hurried in and said, Master Z and old Niu caused a commotion in the Yunling Mountains, and the Taixun Shengzong disciples who participated in the training suffered heavy casualties. Swish. Jun Chang laughed and stood up, saying in despair, this guy is so daring. More than just commotion. It's so chaotic. At this moment, in the depths of the Yunling Mountains, tens of thousands of ferocious beasts with red eyes surrounded the Taixun Shengzong disciples. Trample. Old Niu walked out and said coldly, if you dare to kill my people, you will all die. In the crowd, Suzaomo supported the injured Sun Yingquan with one hand, and roared in his heart, Master, what kind of actors did you invite? They are not professional at all. The plan was to let Master Z take action when necessary to create a little trouble for the Taixun Shengzong disciples, and rush over to sacrifice himself at the critical moment, so as to win the favor of his fellow disciples and elders. As a result, trouble did come. But the Purple Hole Master directly gathered tens of thousands of fierce beasts in the mountains and launched a beast-tide offensive. What was even more devastating was that Elder Sun was injured and chased away. Most of the 500 disciples were killed or injured, and they were surrounded by so many fierce beasts. The situation was precarious. If they stood up now and used their bodies to block the danger, it would definitely be unreasonable. Boy, Zilin Demon King sent a voice message. This Hall Master has created an opportunity for you to show off. Now you can come out and perform. Perform your sister. Tens of thousands of fierce beasts. Let me drive them all away with my martial arts cultivation. It's over. It's over. We are all going to die here. Many Takes Unholy Sect disciples looked desperate. If there were only a few hundred fierce beasts, they could still compete with them. Facing tens of thousands of them, there are still a few spirit beasts that are stronger than the elders. Today, there is absolutely no life. Wow. Sun Yingquan spurted out a mouthful of blood, and his face became paler. This kid was hit by an Iuleo. Although it was not fatal, he was seriously injured. Don't panic. Don't get confused. Suzayomo pretended to be calm and said, the sect will definitely send someone to rescue us. Rescue? Niuleo smiled grimly. I said, you all have to die today. As he said that, he waved his hand and grabbed a trembling Taixun Shengzang disciple and said coldly, you killed 7 of my clansmen. Death penalty. No. Bang. Niuleo squeezed his hand and the life disciple shattered directly. Suzayomo roared in his heart, how can I save you if you wipe them out like this? Next. Niuleo swept the Taixun Shengzang disciples and smiled coldly, whose turn is it next? Trample. Suzayomo walked out with a clenched fist, pretending to tremble with his legs, and said, if you want to, kill me, don't hurt my senior brother. Although these actors don't follow the script, they must turn the plot into a plan. Don't say it. Xia Xuan in the crowd looked at him, her eyes showing strangeness, thinking to herself, isn't he afraid of death? Niuleo raised his hand and said coldly, you are a piece of trash who is not even a martial master. Killing you will only dirty my hands. Bang. A slap was slapped. Suzayomo flew out and hit the boulder hard. Wow. He pretended to be injured and vomited blood, but he collapsed in his heart and said, Master, there are a group of unqualified actors. I can't perform this play anymore. Chapter 861 Life is like a play. It all depends on acting. Jun Changxiao wanted to provide Suzayomo with a martial arts stage to show off his skills in the training of the outer disciples of Taixun Holy Sect, so as to be appreciated by the higher-ups. In fact, Suzayomo had a whole plan of his own. First of all, the strength he pretended to have just entered the martial arts master in Taixun Holy Sect was unrealistic to win the first place in the training of Yunling Mountains, so he decided to take the tragic route. What is the tragic route? It means to artificially create trouble for Sun Yingquan and Xia Xuan, and stand up in a critical moment to help them bear the damage and pretend to be seriously injured. The plan is perfect, but the reality is cruel. When the Purple Ridge Demon King saw his tribe being killed, he immediately lost control of his emotions and directly gathered tens of thousands of fierce beasts inside to form a beast tide to attack the outer disciples of Taixun Holy Sect. At this time, Suzayomo certainly could not stand up. After all, his cultivation was only a martial arts master, and if he could survive the beast tide, he would definitely be questioned. However, what was even more desperate was, as soon as Elder Niu appeared in his true form, he injured Elder Sun and drove him away, leaving only a group of outer disciples trembling. In this situation, even if I burst out my martial king cultivation, I might not be able to do it. The plan and the plot were all messed up, and the difficulty was raised 10 levels. Suzayomo couldn't act anymore. To say that Master Z and Elder Niu were unqualified actors was already relatively mild. It was a bit harsh. A group of pig teammates. However, no matter how wrong the plot was, no matter how difficult the play was, it still had to be performed. Suzayomo stood up, his arms hanging down, and said unsteadily, if you want to, kill me, don't hurt my senior brother. He now not only had to continue to take the pathetic route, but also had to find a way to delay time. As one of the top sects, It should have received the news that the outer disciples were attacked by beasts by now and should have sent strong men to help. Yes, it has been received. However, it takes some time to get from the sect to the Yunling Mountains. Gaosheng, Sun Yingqin, who was seriously injured on the ground, was stunned. He didn't expect that junior brother Su would behave so manly in such a situation, while he and other fellow disciples were so scared that their guts were broken. Bang! Old NIU slapped him again. Boom. Suzaomo slammed into the stone wall, forced the blood out of his body with his spiritual energy, staggered to his feet, his eyes flickered with determination in his disheveled hair, and said, "Can these two palms buy 2 lives for my senior brother, junior brother Su?" The outer disciples of Taixu and Holy Sect were stunned. Hehe. Old NIU laughed and said, "Boy, you are quite resistant. Well, let's play a game. Take my palm and spare 1 life." Fortunately, this brother can follow the plot, otherwise the play can't be performed. Suzaomo took a deep breath, and his face suddenly became ferocious because of the injury. Come on. Every action and every behavior of a qualified undercover must be at the level of an actor. The disciples of Taixu and Holy Sect had already determined from his superb acting skills that he was struggling to hold on and was using his life to delay time. Bang! Old NIU hit him again. Suzaomo flew out gorgeously, then fell to the ground, with one foot twitching slightly. Old NIU thought to himself, it's so realistic. Although it looks like it uses a lot of force, it's actually just that simple, and martial arts disciples won't feel any pain. Wow. Suzaomo forced out another mouthful of blood, then staggered to his feet. Sun Yingqin and Zhaoshuan were all stunned. After being hit many times in a row, he was obviously seriously injured, so why could he still stand up? Hey. Old NIU said in surprise, "You little martial artist are really tough. It seems that I have to use some strength." This sentence was telling the disciples of Taixu and Holy Sect that I had never had the intention to kill him, and gave an explanation for Suzaomo's ability to resist so many times. Old NIU. Suzaomo transmitted his voice, "Hit harder, break the bones." He always stood up like a tumbler. There must be a flaw. If you want to play to the extreme. Fist blasted. Bang, crack. The sound of ribs breaking came, and Suzaomo flew out, and then fell to the ground with a bang. Junior brother Su. Sun Yingqin suppressed the injury, and roared with a fist. At that moment, the eyes of the disciples of Taixu and Holy Sect also showed grief. After all, Su Gaosheng was trampled by the spirit beast for everyone. Evil beast. Sun Yingqin said angrily, "If you have the guts, come at me, don't hurt my junior brother." Although this guy is a little arrogant, at this time, he was also inspired by Suzaomo's iron-willed performance. As for the other disciples, they also showed expressions of fearless death. "Don't worry." Old NIU smiled coldly, "It's your turn soon." He stopped abruptly, because Suzaomo struggled to get up and half knelt, one hand on the ground, the other hand covering his chest, blood flowing from the corner of his mouth, and said in a mosquito-like voice, I haven't fallen yet. Old NIU. Come and step on me. Now he can only bet that the strong men of Taixu and Holy Sect will come to support him quickly, and all he can do is to delay time as much as possible. I understand. Old NIU came over and said coldly, "It seems that I'm too kind to let you live until now." He raised his foot and stepped on it. Bang, bang, bang. He stepped on it crazily. Junior brother Su. If Sun Yingqin was not injured, he would rush up at this time, even if he might die. Bang bang bang. Old NIU trampled Suzaomo to his heart's content. The outer disciples of Taixu and Holy Sect who were huddled together all looked at him with wide eyes. "Aren't you coming yet?" Zhaoshuan in the crowd looked cold and icy, but she was very anxious in her heart. Swish, swish. Suddenly, in the distant sky, hundreds of streams of light were flying at a very fast speed, and the aura in the sky was very strong. Old NIU. Zilin Demon King transmitted, "We can retreat. Let's go." Swish, swish, swish. In an instant, Old NIU and other spirit beasts retreated. The tens of thousands of fierce beasts surrounding the outer disciples of Taixu and Holy Sect also scattered. As soon as they disappeared, the strong men of Taixu and Holy Sect fell one after another. These people were all at the Emperor level. If they fought with Zilin Demon King, it would be earth-shattering. Are you alright? The middle-aged man in the lead asked. Elder Shen. Xia Xuan hurriedly pointed to Su Xiaomo, who was lying in the distance with bruises all over his body, and said, Junior brother Su is seriously injured and needs to be treated quickly. Woman. It turns out that you are not cold either. Su Xiaomo fainted with satisfaction. Although the difficulty of the play has increased a lot, it is a good bet. Taixun Shengzang is still very fast in rescue. When Su Xiaomo, who pretended to be unconscious, woke up, he was already on the hospital bed of Taixun Shengzang. Junior brother Su. Sun Yingqin, with a bandage on his wrist, hurriedly stood up and said, you finally woke up. Senior brother Sun. Su Xiaomo said, what is this place? Sun Yingqin knew that he was unconscious and didn't know what happened later, so he hurriedly explained. Really, everyone is safe. Su Xiaomo smiled with difficulty. That's great. Sun Yingqin said. Junior brother Su stepped forward in the crisis, delaying time for everyone and preventing more fellow disciples from falling. I'm really moved by you. This is what I should do. Cough cough. Su Xiaomo didn't continue to speak because she needed to pretend to be seriously injured. Life is like a play, and it all depends on acting. Sun Yingqin hurriedly said, don't talk, heal your wounds first. Pa. Xia Xuan appeared in the ward, put a bottle of pills on the table, and said lightly, this is Kingxin Bingji pills, which can quickly recover from injuries. After that, she turned and left. Sun Yingqin was stunned. Kingxin Bingji pills are the sect's top healing medicine, which is extremely difficult to obtain. This woman actually took out a bottle. In the hall, more than 10 elders of Taixun Holy Sect were talking. The topic was, why did an innocent spirit beast comparable to the Emperor appear outside the Yunling Mountains, and why did a group of fierce beasts riot? Elder Shen guessed. The altar sent a message earlier that the Purple Ridge Demon King has been unsealed. Could it be this guy who is causing trouble? That's a possibility. It seems that, if we don't find the monster as soon as possible, it will be a threat to our Taixun Holy Sect and even the entire continent. We have to find it, but it's a matter for the altar, so we don't have to intervene. Is the disciple named Su Gaosheng okay? Although he was seriously injured, he was treated in time and is out of danger now. He was able to stand up for his fellow disciples and delay time in a life and death situation. This courage is precious. I think he must be rewarded. Elder Sun said. Elder Xia next to him said, Shuyun told me what happened. At that time, all the outer disciples were scared silly, and only he dared to stand up. He should be used as an example. The fact that the two of them helped Su Gaosheng so much means that the self-torture trick was not in vain, and at least he gained the favor of the two elders. The third elder with higher authority was silent for a while, and said, since the training was interrupted by the beasts, Su Gaosheng won the first place, and was awarded 500 merit points. No one had any objection. If it weren't for Su Gaosheng who risked his life to stand up and successfully delayed time, hundreds of disciples would have died long ago, and he deserved the merit points. Junior brother Su. Sun Yingqin came to the ward and said excitedly, in view of your performance in the Yunling Mountains, the elders have discussed and decided to reward you with 500 merit points. Su Xiaomo was stunned. According to the plan, she would not fight or compete for the training in the Yunling Mountains this time. She only needed to play a tragic role and win the favor of two disciples with the elders backing. She never thought that she would get such a high merit point. The reward was naturally because of the Purple Ridge Demon King. However, that guy was now standing in the Spirit Beast Hall with old Niu with his head down, being scolded by Sect Master Jun. Two big guys. I'm asking you to help Su Xiaomo show off and give him a chance to shine, not to launch a beast attack or show off. The Taixun Holy Sect has sent so many Emperor level masters to help. If something goes wrong and the identity of the disciple is exposed, you will be blamed. The Purple Ridge Monster King whispered, it's not that serious. Swish. Jun Changxiao sat down and drank a sip of tea, saying, things are not going well. Reduce 2 of the 3 meals a day this month, and reduce the number of intermediate beast pills by half. Chapter 862 How did the situation change? After the Yunling Mountains incident, Suzaomo was recognized by the elders. After all, it was rare for someone to stand up for his fellow disciples regardless of life or death. Sun Yingquan, who initially only regarded him as a follower, now regarded him as a close friend. After recovering from his injuries, he took the initiative to call Suzaomo over and secretly gave her the secret book. Junior brother, this is the 12-root chrysanthemum sword technique. Take it and practice it. Don't tell anyone that it was given by me. Thank you, senior brother son. Sun Yingquan said with a straight face. It would be awkward to say thank you. Suzaomo grinned. I've taken on a relatively easy task. Let's go and complete it together tomorrow. Okay. Not only did Sun Yingquan change his attitude towards Suzaomo, other fellow disciples would greet him enthusiastically as long as they saw him from a distance, but they used to just ignore him. Suzaomo was able to get along with everyone. In the eyes of the elders, he was a capable young man, but in the eyes of many disciples, he was a bit slippery, so he was not well received. After the incident in Yunling Mountains, they realized that this fellow disciple had courage and backbone, so they naturally accepted it. Although the Purple Hall Master and the others can't act, fortunately everything is still as planned. Suzaomo said secretly on the way to the cafeteria. For now, he has successfully established a foothold in the outer sect. He only needs to slowly release his talent and strength, and there should be no problem in being promoted to the inner sect. In a large sect like Takeso and Holy Sect, playing both sides and flattering can only accumulate limited connections. If you want to really rise to the top, you have to rely on your own strength. You can't take too big a step so as not to arouse suspicion from the top. Hey. Suzaomo rubbed his temples and said secretly, my undercover journey is a long way to go. Hey. Suddenly, a voice came. Suzaomo turned around and saw Xia Xuan leaning against a big tree. She said calmly, is your injury healed? The girl was about 18 or 19 years old. Although her appearance was not stunning, she was very attractive. However, she had a cold look on her face, and she looked like she was keeping people away. When a girl with a cold personality takes the initiative to talk to you, it means that she has relaxed her guard against you. Suzaomo heard the words of Wei Leo. Then how should I get in touch with her? When facing such a girl, you must not pester her, because it will be counterproductive. Keep a distance from her deliberately, and then wait and see what happens. Adapt to the situation, and respond to changes with the same attitude. Suzaomo carefully savored what Wei Leo had said, and said with a bow, thank you, senior sister, for the Kinksinbingji pills. My injury has healed. Xia Xuan said calmly, Sun Yingquan is not interested in martial arts. Following him will only delay your future. After that, she turned and left. Suzaomo thought to herself, I would like to follow you, but you don't care about me. The care he said was not about men and women, but about having a grandfather who is an elder, which is good for him to get along in Takeso and Shengzang. Dogsheng. Sun Yingquan appeared behind him, put his arm around his shoulder and said, did I see Xia Xuan talking to you just now? Suzaomo said, ask me about my injuries. TSK. Sun Yingquan said, this cold woman actually knows how to care about my junior brother, which is really a bit abnormal. Could it be? He paused and said, she is interested in you? Senior brother son, don't joke. Suzaomo said, I'm of humble origin, and not very talented. How could I be favored by a proud girl like senior sister Xia? Don't think too low of yourself. Sun Yingquan patted his shoulder and said, come on, let's go eat. The cafeteria of Takeso and Shengzang is larger and larger than that of Wangazang. However, the food doesn't suit Suzaomo's appetite. Every time she eats it, it feels like eating chaff, and she has to pretend that it tastes good. I really miss the food Dudu made. Suzaomo sat down with the food in a listless manner. Just as she was about to start eating, she suddenly felt a chill coming, and saw Xia Xuan sitting right in front of her. Hey. Sun Yingquan came over with the food and said, this is my seat. Why are you sitting here? I'm happy to. Xia Xuan said indifferently. You, forget it, a good man should not fight with a woman. Sun Yingquan sat in another seat and muttered in his heart, she always eats alone, why is she sitting opposite Gao Sheng today? When facing a girl like this, you must not pester her, because it will backfire. Keep a distance from her deliberately, then wait and see, adapt to the situation, and respond to changes with the same attitude. Suzutomo kept thinking about what Wei Leo said, so she lowered her head to eat, and didn't look at Xia Xuan, or say a word to her the whole time. Wei Leo, how did the situation change? I took a task, let's do it together after dinner. Xia Xuan spoke. Sun Yingqin, who was drinking soup, almost choked. Did you hear it right? The woman who has always been isolated from the world actually took the initiative to find Gao Sheng to do a task. Suzutomo scratched her head and said, Senior sister Xia, senior brother Sun and I have an appointment. After dinner, we will go to the spiritual energy formation to practice, so we must go. Xia Xuan said. This. Suzutomo looked at Sun Yingqin, who said, Senior sister Xia rarely asks for help. You have to give her some face. Did she ask? This is an order. Okay. Suzutomo said, I'll go after dinner. As she said that, she picked up the chopsticks and started eating. Xia Xuan said lightly, when you scratched your head just now, the dandruff fell into the bowl. Ah. Suzutomo's expression became interesting. Yenshin Ridge. A very evil place. At this moment, Suzutomo walked in front and Xia Xuan walked behind. The two did not communicate and kept a certain distance. Senior sister. Not long after walking, Suzutomo finally couldn't help asking, what mission are you doing? Destroy the Yimfeng Wolf King. Huh. Suzutomo's eyes widened and said, this is a ferocious beast comparable to the peak martial arts master. I can't beat it. You just need to lead the wolves away and leave it to me. Xia Xuan said. Suzutomo rolled her eyes. It feels like this woman called herself over to do the mission together, just to lure the target. Awoo. Awoo. At this moment, waves of wolf howls came from the dark forest. Tap, tap, tap. One by one, the Yinfeng wolves, whose strength was at the lower 9th level, came out, their eyes emitting a cold light. Go. Xia Xuan said, lead them away. Although Suzutomo was very upset, he could only step forward and taunt the wolf beasts, a bunch of little fleas, come and catch me. Ah. Ah. Hundreds of wolf beasts rushed over frantically. Oh my god. Suzutomo hurriedly ran away. Although he had been very deliberate to suppress it, his short legs were still very fast when he took a step. Clang. At this moment, Xia Xuan sacrificed a 3-foot-long sword, stepped on the mysterious body skills to blend into the darkness, and searched for the Yinfeng Wolf King hidden in it. This woman is too reckless. Suzutomo, who was running with a group of wolf beasts, said speechlessly. His spiritual thoughts had penetrated deep into the interior and found that there was not only the Yinfeng Wolf King, but also several high-level wolf beasts comparable to Wu Zhang. It was easy to get in, but it was difficult to get out. P.S. Only 2 updates today. The Strongest Sect will be recommended in the middle of this month, and there will be a burst of updates at that time. I don't have the ability to cheat, so I can only choose to work hard. How many updates will be released? About 10, 20. I dare not say more. I'm afraid that I can't do it. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 863, Careful as a Needle. Sure enough, Xia Xuan went deep into the forest and saw 4 sect level beasts in addition to the Wolf King. She immediately realized that the situation was not good. She wanted to retreat, but as soon as the thought came up, she was surrounded. It's not easy to deal with the Wolf King, let alone 4 helpers. Suzutomo thought to herself, this woman is going to be in big trouble. Save her or not? Forget it, just wait and see. Suzutomo retracted his thoughts and continued to drag hundreds of wolf beasts around in the forest. For the sake of show, he gave up the dignity of Martial King. He would rather act very weak and be chased by a group of garbage beasts comparable to martial arts apprentices. Boom. Boom. Fighting sounds came from the depths of the forest, and the cold air filled the air. Xia Xuan fought with several powerful spirit beasts, but because there were too many of them, and their strength was not overwhelming, she soon fell into a passive position. This was within Suzayamo's expectations. In the current situation, let alone her alone, even if there were a few more disciples, it would be very difficult. I was careless. We have to find a way to get out quickly. Xia Xuan was dealing with several beasts while thinking about how to escape. However, the Yinfeng Wolf King had seen through her thoughts. He looked up and growled, and then two of his men blocked the way. Damn it. Xia Xuan could only fight with him passively. Puff. After fighting for a while, the Yinfeng Wolf King scratched her arm with his sharp claws. Suzayamu, who was walking outside, was always paying attention to the inside. Seeing that the woman was injured, he thought to himself, if I don't save her, she will definitely die here. How to save her? It was a big problem. Puff. Puff. Blood splattered and poured on the ground. Xia Xuan's back was scratched several times by the Yinfeng Wolf King. Now the situation is extremely unfavorable to her. Hey. Suzayamu stopped and began to gather spiritual energy in his palm. Xia Xuan is the granddaughter of Elder Xia. Making friends with her will help her get promoted in the future. She can't let her die here, and she can't come out to save her directly, so she can only come secretly. Hey. Troublesome woman. Suzayamu waved his hand, and his spiritual energy gathered into a needle shape. With his martial king strength, he could easily take the head of the Yinfeng Wolf King hundreds of feet away without making any sound. However, just as Suzayamu was about to take action, Xia Xuan, who was originally in danger, had a resolute look in her eyes, and a stream of cold air burst out from her body, spreading rapidly around. Ice 1,000 miles. Whoosh, the cold air swept with the wind, and the grass and trees condensed into ice wherever they passed. Crack. Crack crack, the Yinfeng Wolf King and the 4 wolf beasts who attacked were not spared, and were immediately frozen by the cold air attribute, turning into 5 lifelike ice sculptures. TSK. Suzayamu dispersed his spiritual energy and said in surprise, this woman actually has a trump card. But, it seems a bit reluctant to use it. I'm afraid it's already. Puff. Xia Xuan spurted blood, and her whole face became extremely pale, as if she had suffered a serious injury. The freezing time was limited, so she had no time to catch her breath. She pressed down on her body that was suffering from the backlash, and hurried to the outside. I'm going to die. I'm going to die. I'm going to die. As soon as she walked out, she saw Suzayamu running wildly with her tongue sticking out and howling. Go. Xia Xuan shouted. After that, she took the first step to the outside, but after just 2 steps, she almost fell to the ground because of her injuries. Senior Sister Xia. Suzayamu ran over with sweat on her forehead and said, you are injured. As soon as the voice fell, she directly picked up Xia Xuan and ran wildly outside screaming. Hoo. Hoo. On the ancient road outside Yunshan Ridge, Suzayamu stopped, panting rapidly, and her legs were so tired that they were shaking violently. She was pretending so well. Have you hugged enough? Xia Xuan said coldly. Suzayamu hurriedly put her down in her arms and stammered to explain. Xia. Senior Sister Xia, the situation was critical at that time. I know. Don't say it. Xia Xuan said weakly. Suzayamu hurriedly closed her mouth. Awoo. At this moment, the wolf beast roared again from the direction of Yunshan Ridge, and it seemed that it was catching up. Xia Xuan frowned and said, let's go. Okay. Suzayamu ran away and left her there. This guy. Xia Xuan bit her lip and said with difficulty, come back, take me with you. Oh. Suzayamu hurriedly turned back, then pulled the other person's hand and ran forward, but the injury caused her to spurt blood. Senior Sister Xia, you vomited blood. Don't talk nonsense, just hold me and run. Okay. Night fell. In the slightly damp cave, Suzayamu was roasting a pheasant in front of the campfire. Xia Xuan sat cross-legged with her eyes closed in the distance, her body covered with ice, as if she was healing. After a long time, the pheasant was roasted, and she opened her eyes. Although her face was still pale, her injuries were temporarily controlled. Hey. Zha Xuan sighed and said, it would be great if I had Kingxin Bingji pills. Here. Suzaomo handed over a delicate small bottle. Zha Xuan looked at him and said in surprise, didn't you take it? Such a precious pill, I can't bear to eat it. Suzaomo smiled foolishly. Zha Xuan took the medicine bottle, took out the pill and swallowed it, then circulated her mind again and began to recuperate. Suzaomo sat next to her, holding her chin and looking at her, thinking, are all girls with ice physiques and practicing ice attributes so cold? Huh. Suddenly, she released her spiritual thoughts and found that the Yinfeng Wolf King and his wolf pack were approaching the cave. This group of fleas is really annoying. Swish, swish. The Yinfeng Wolf King chased after it, based on the smell in the remaining air, but it was still more than 10 miles away from the cave. Suddenly, a cold shout came from his ears. Go back to Yunshan Ridge. Gap. It quickly retracted its body. Its eyes were filled with horror, and then it tucked its tail and fled back to Yunshan Ridge with its men. Although it didn't see anyone, it told it directly that its strength must be very strong. Can't afford to provoke. Absolutely can't afford to provoke. The next day, Zha Xuan recovered from her injuries under the care of Kingxin Bingji pills, but it was temporarily difficult to circulate her spiritual energy. This is also a side effect of using ice martial arts to seal the wolf beast. Senior Sister Zaya. Suzaomo ran in from outside, pushed over the lotus leaf filled with clear water, and smiled. The spring water here is so sweet. Would you like to try it? Not thirsty. Zha Xuan said lightly. Oh. Suzaomo raised her head and drank it herself, thinking to herself, it is just as Wen Leo said, such a woman must be deliberately kept away. Yesterday. Zha Xuan looked at him with a certain luster in her eyes and said meaningfully, you run very fast. Suzaomo's heart stomped. Although he was acting all the time, the situation was a bit troublesome yesterday, and the speed of escaping from Yunshan Ridge with it was also much faster. Even though he was seriously injured, he could still realize this. Sure enough, women are as meticulous as a needle. Suzaomo kept looking at Zha Xuan. A professional undercover must stand the test under any circumstances. After a while, he scratched his head and said, I have no qualifications and no talent. I have lived in the mountains since I was a child, so I can run fast. Zha Xuan kept looking at him and then said in a positive tone, you are lying. Chapter 864, taking advantage of the situation. You are lying. Zha Xuan said these 4 words with a very short tone. Suzaomo's heart was immediately hanging. Did this cold woman find out something? It shouldn't be like this. She hid it so well. When you were chased by the wolf beast, I saw that it was not because you ran fast, but because you practiced some kind of body skills. Zha Xuan stared at him with a suspicious look. The more so, the more uneasy Suzaomo became. How could I, who came from a poor family, practice body skills? Senior Sister Zaya, don't joke. I came from a poor family? Zha Xuan said lightly. This kind of nonsense can only deceive the recruiting elders. Oh my. This woman must have found out something. Could it be she is suspicious of her identity? What should I do? Kill and silence her? Or destroy the body to cover up the evidence? Zha Xuan said lightly, you use your low status to make yourself look humble just because you don't want to attract the attention of your fellow disciples and then rely on flattery and bootlicking to rise step by step. Well said. To sneak into the Takeso unholy sect is to make oneself insignificant and then use connections to be promoted step by step. Suzaomo, who was a little hesitant at first, made a decision in her heart. Moreover, Zha Xuan said, when you were attacked by the spirit beast in the Yunling mountains, although the other party did not use heavy hands, with your martial arts cultivation, you would never be able to hold on for so long. Suzaomo frowned. I originally wanted to get close to you and become a tool for my promotion, but now it seems that I can only use ruthless hands to destroy you. However, the sect knows that she came to do the mission. If they never come back, how to explain it? Suzaomo thought about it. Zha Xuan said, you are an ambitious person. Outer disciples will never satisfy you, but you must also understand that becoming an inner disciple does not rely on shortcuts, but on your own strength. Huh. Suzaomo was stunned. Does she think that she is a person who deliberately lowers her status and deliberately plays both sides for ambition? Ah. Suzaomo shrugged and said helplessly, I was discovered again. Xia Xuan's mouth corners slightly raised, revealing a barely detectable smile, as if she was proud of being able to see through the other party's ambition. Suzaomo, who was good at observing people's words and expressions, caught it and thought to herself, she probably didn't think that she would be an undercover agent, so I can take this opportunity to fool her. I originally planned to get along with you as an ordinary person, but what I got in return was doubt. No more pretending, I'll show my cards. Suzaomo sat down, and the slightly honest look on her face disappeared. I have practiced body skills, and I deliberately tried to curry favor with senior brother Sun and senior sister Xia. Did Yunling Mountain Range do it on purpose? Xia Xuan said. Yes. Suzaomo lowered her head, and pretended to be depressed. I, Su Jintang, have a poor family background. I don't have a nice type physique like senior sister Xia. I also have a grandfather who is an elder. It is difficult to gain a foothold in Take's unholy sect, so I can only ask noble people to help me. For the time being, you are right. Xia Xuan said, behind the Yunling Mountains, the elders are very satisfied with you. Suzaomo smiled bitterly and said, Senior sister Xia, do you know that this satisfaction is earned by my life? You are very smart. Xia Xuan said, in that situation, you will die anyway, so why not take a gamble and use your life to delay time? If you succeed, you will be valued, but if you fail, you will still die. This woman is really not simple. However, it seems that the guessing has gone off topic. Suzaomo grinned and said, I bet right. He can now be sure that this woman just thinks that she is determined to climb up and did not think that there is a deeper intention. You are nothing more than luck. If you want to gain a foothold in Take's unholy sect, you still have to rely on strength. Xia Xuan said. Suzaomo said, strength must also be based on resources. If I, Su Jintang, can be valued by the top management, even if I have 1/10 of the martial arts resources of senior sister Xia and senior brother Sun, I may not be weaker than others. So confident? Xia Xuan said. Suddenly, Suzaomo released his cultivation to the level of martial arts, and a heavy momentum filled the cave. He said proudly, when I went down the mountain, my master often taught me that others can look down on me, but I must look up to myself. This should be the only truth he has said since he became an undercover agent. Because in terms of relationship, he and Jun Changxiao are master and apprentice, and the latter often uses this sentence to encourage his disciples. So you have hidden your cultivation. There was no surprise in Xia Xuan's words and eyes. Senior sister Xia. Suzaomo smiled and said, let's be frank. You deliberately called me to do the mission, isn't it just to test me? Xia Xuan looked at him. What is your ambition? Suzaomo restrained her breath and said with sharp eyes, to become an inner disciple, a core disciple, or even an elder, or even the leader of a sect. Xia Xuan was stunned. This guy is very ambitious. He actually wants to be the leader of a sect. At first, he didn't, but when things got to this point, Suzaomo just talked about it in a big way. Of course. This is not my ambition, but my dream. You can laugh at me. You can also think that I'm daydreaming, but my dream will never change, because Master once said that a cook who doesn't want to be a general is not a good tailor. Jun Changxiao. Yes, I really said that. Puchy. Xia Xuan was amused by the last sentence. However, realizing that it was not in line with her character, she quickly tightened her face and said, dreams are not about words, but about actions and efforts. I've been working hard. Trying hard to flatter the unlearned Sun Yingquan is a waste of time. I would like to flatter senior sister Xia, but I'm afraid that it will delay your cultivation. Anyway, I have already confessed, so there is no need to deliberately hide some things. Take a rest for 2 days. Xia Xuan said, go to Yinshanling again. That. Suzaomo didn't finish her words, and she heard her say, I will keep it a secret for you. Thank you, senior sister. Is Su Jintang your real name? Yes. Who is the master you are talking about? My master is Junshan Elder, who has been living in seclusion in the mountains for many years. Junshan Elder? Xia Xuan thought to herself, I have never heard of this person. He should be a hidden martial artist. Huh. Suzaromo breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, this woman guessed off topic and thought that he had ambitions, not an undercover agent, otherwise she would be forced to kill to silence him. A few days later, Xia Xuan recovered from her injuries, and the two went to Yunshanling again. Senior sister. Suzaromo stopped at the outer area and whispered, I will be responsible for luring the wolves first, and then after shaking them off, we will work together to get rid of the Yunfeng Wolf King. Okay. Xia Xuan said. I'll go first. Suzaromo rushed in and soon lured the wolves out. This time, the luring was quite thorough, and those beasts comparable to the sect level were also chasing after them. Swish. Not long after, Suzaromo jumped out of the bushes and said, there is not much time left, so we must fight quickly. Xia Xuan was stunned. This guy ran too fast. Time did not allow her to think carefully, so she took out her 3-foot-long sword and rushed into the forest with Suzaromo. The Yunfeng Wolf King was not bad, but facing 2 sect-level warriors without help was doomed to be a tragedy. Puchy. After a short fight, the head was chopped off. Awoo. Awoo. Just at this moment, the wolves that were released by the kite finally rushed back. Let's go. Suzaromo picked up Xia Xuan, who had put the Wolf King's head into the space ring, and after a few leaps and falls, she completely disappeared into the dense forest. Hoo. The cold wind blew in her ears. Xia Xuan tried to keep a distance from his chest. Her eyebrows were slightly furrowed, and she thought to herself, this guy's taking advantage of me again. Chapter 865. People that senior sister hates are my enemies. After killing the Yunfeng Wolf King, Suzaromo and Xia Xuan returned to take Unholy Sect. After handing in the task and getting the reward, Xia Xuan handed all the elixirs and the time card to go to the spiritual orator Suzaromo, saying, don't ask why, this is what you deserve. Suzaromo accepted all the rewards and smiled innocently. Thank you, senior sister. In front of Xia Xuan, he had to pretend to be an ambitious person, and in the sect, he still had to pretend to be a low status, sociable little sly. Oh. It really tests his acting skills. In the future, stay with Sun Yingquan less. Xia Xuan said, if there is any task, I will ask you to go with me. Yes. Suzaromo nodded. Oh, by the way. Before leaving, Xia Xuan stopped and said, the outer disciple assessment will be held soon. I hope you can get good results and let the elders look at you differently. This, I will do my best. Suzaromo said. Next. He put his mind on cultivation. Because of the merit points and the rewards from the missions, his frequent appearances in the place of cultivation did not arouse the suspicion of his fellow disciples. During this period, Xia Xuan would also appear from time to time and take him to do missions. Suzaromo knew that after the incident at Yunshan Ridge, this woman was obviously taking the initiative to help him obtain more martial arts resources. Gaosheng, you have been very close to Xia Xuan recently. Is it possible that you really have that kind of relationship? On the way to the cafeteria, Sun Yingquan asked in a low voice. Not only him, but many outer disciples were talking about it. After all, senior sister Xia, who was always cold, came to Suzaromo too frequently, and anyone with a discerning eye could see that something was wrong. What kind of relationship can there be between senior sister Xia and me? It's nothing more than doing missions together. Suzaromo quickly denied. He was also very depressed now. Because Xia Xuan's help was too obvious, it was easy to be gossiped. Moreover, as a beautiful woman, there was never a lack of admirers and pursuers in the sect. If he was too close to her, he might get into trouble. As expected, just as he was about to get his meal in the cafeteria, a tall and handsome fellow disciple stopped him and said indifferently, "Boy, I advise you to stay away from junior sister Xia." This person was called Zhang. He was a strong disciple in the outer sect. It was said that he would be promoted to the inner sect in the end of year sect competition. There were many outer disciples in Unholy Sect, but they were also divided. Suzaromo, Sun Yingquan and Xia Xuan entered the sect later and belonged to the same class. Other disciples entered the outer sect earlier and belonged to the previous class or the previous class. To put it bluntly, it was divided into grades just like in school. If the outer disciples of Takesu Unholy Sect were compared to junior high school and high school, Suzaitomo was just in the first grade of junior high school, while Hizangying became an outer disciple earlier and could be considered a senior high school student now. The surname He. Sun Yingquan walked over and raised his head and said, "Who are you trying to scare?" Hizangying did not take elder son's son seriously, but glanced at Suzaitomo indifferently and turned away. Senior brother He has been in love with junior sister Zaya for a while. Junior brother Su has been getting a little too close to junior sister Zaya recently. It's only a matter of time before something bad happens. In the cafeteria, the outer disciples whispered, "Gao Sheng." Sun Yingquan put his hand on Suzaitomo's shoulder and said, "Don't be afraid, with my senior brother here, that guy won't dare to bully you." "Thank you, senior brother." Suzaitomo found a place to sit down with the food in her hand, and then looked at Xia Xuan, who was eating in the distance intentionally or unintentionally, and her heart broke down and said, "Did she do it on purpose? Old man Junshan?" In the Wangu sect, Jun Changxiao leaned back in his chair and murmured, "My new identity?" Li Luoqiu smiled and said, "Xiaomo also said that Xia Xuan, the granddaughter of Elder Xia, has been pestering him recently, so he was warned by his senior brother from the outer sect and asked the sect master what to do. He has established a firm foothold in the Takesu Unholy Sect. If he wants to climb up, he must use his strength to impress the top leaders." Jun Changxiao thought for a while and said, "Tell Xiaomo that there is no need to keep a low profile all the time. If you explode at the right time, you can win the attention of the top leaders." In traditional novels, when the protagonist joins a sect, he goes from being patient at first to showing his edge, and then to killing everyone, step by step to the pinnacle of life, so he plans to let Suzaitomo play in this way. "Yes." Li Luoqiu withdrew and sent the message out. Jun Changxiao touched his chin and said, "If it is known that a disciple of Master joins the Takesu Unholy Sect, it should be taken seriously enough, right?" He put his fingers on the armrest and tapped lightly. "When the matter of the plain battlefield is over, I have to do something with the identity of Junshan Leo Ren to make Xiaomo's lies more realistic and three-dimensional." The system said, "The host wants Suzaitomo to move to a higher position, not just to obtain the affairs of Lu Kaiyan Qian and Fang Lingaiu. If my disciples have the ability to infiltrate a large sect and have a pivotal position, it would actually be quite good." Jun Chang smiled. Takesu Unholy Sect. After Suzaitomo received the message from the head of the Li Hall, he secretly thought, "How can I explode at the right time? This right time is very particular. I can't collapse and release my realm to the king of martial arts and then beat Hizangying civilly. It's okay to abuse him, but it must be reasonable, and others must not find fault with it. Go to the Gangfa Pavilion and exchange martial arts with merit points." Suzaitomo stood up and then entered the Gangfa Pavilion for outer disciples, selected a body method and a boxing method, and registered to leave. This kid used 500 merit points to exchange for two of the most difficult martial arts to practice. The elder of the Gangfa Pavilion glanced at the registration book and saw the names of two high-level and difficult martial arts, and his eyes suddenly showed surprise. After returning to his residence, Suzaitomo began to focus on practicing. With his holy spiritual root qualification and martial king cultivation, it is easy for him to comprehend this kind of top-grade martial arts. "Let's go." Xia Xuan shouted outside. "Go to do the mission." "Okay, senior sister." Suzaitomo stood up and continued to contact this woman, continuing to do tasks to earn martial arts resources that would give her a reason to become stronger. Hizangying has the qualifications to become an outer disciple of the inner sect. On the way to do the task, Xia Xuan said, "If you can defeat him, you will definitely be valued by the top leaders." Suzaitomo's mouth twitched and said, "You come to me to do tasks every day. Is it intentional? I'm helping you fulfill your dream." Xia Xuan stopped and looked back at him. Sure enough, this woman always came to me openly and justly, just to do it on purpose, deliberately letting others come to cause trouble. Although she didn't know what her intention was, Suzaitomo also knew that if she could defeat Hizangying under reasonable circumstances, she would definitely get a lot of recognition. "Here." Xia Xuan threw a space ring and said, "There are 50 natural spirit stones in it." This. Suzaitomo was stunned. 50 natural spirit stones are not a small amount. It may take several years for the outer disciples of Takeso Unholy Sect to earn that much. Don't ask why. Xia Xuan said, I just hate his Ying. Suzuyomo understood. That guy must come to harass her often, so he deliberately approaches her to be a shield. Suzuyomo smiled and said, the people that senior sister hates are my enemies. Senior sister hates the whole world, so I will be the enemy of the world. Xia Xuan was stunned and whispered, big idiot. PS. Monday, please vote. Chapter 866. Once I get serious, no one can stop me. Hoo hoo. In the Wangu sect, a strong momentum of advancement rose in the inner courtyard. Crack. Li Qingyang pushed the door open and walked out, looking even more energetic. Not bad, not bad. Jun Changxiao sat in the hall and said with a smile, finally, it was not in vain that I gave so many spiritual stones. You reached the peak of Martial King faster than expected. At this moment, there were still 2 months left before the epic task settlement period. Li Qingyang entered the peak of Martial King after Yi Xingchen, and it was also because he entered Lingan Pavilion and obtained a divine spiritual root. Congratulations, second brother. Li Fei, Shanqi and others congratulated him. Li Qingyang said, you should also work hard and strive to break through the peak of Martial King within 2 months. Don't let the sect master down. As the chief steward of internal affairs, he is very competent and satisfied. Yeah. Everyone nodded, their faces full of confidence. The sect master gave so many natural spiritual stones, and there are various martial arts facilities to assist. It is not difficult to reach the peak of Martial King in 2 months. Let's go to the spirit gathering formation to practice, and try to catch up with the second brother and the ninth brother, as soon as possible. Li Fei, Shanqi and others were stimulated by Li Qingyang's breakthrough, and practiced more diligently. Ha ha ha. Ha 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 ha. As soon as they walked to the outer courtyard, there was an unbridled laugh from the spirit beast hall. Swish. The purple hall master landed on the martial arts field, and clenched his hands suddenly. Bang, all his clothes burst suddenly, and his purple hair flew under the release of his breath. The whole person looked extremely arrogant. This king, the purple demon king, said with a scorching look, finally recovered to the strength before being sealed. During this period of time, he had to reduce 2 meals a day, which made him feel wronged, so he could only focus on recovery, and he got what he wanted to reach the level before being sealed. In the hall, Jun Changxiao held up his side face and said, that is to say, if we want to seal you again, we need at least 5 martial saints. 5? Humph, that was before. Zilin Demon King raised a strand of hair on his forehead and said proudly, now at least 1 more is needed. Jun Changxiao almost fell off his chair. I thought you were awesome, but you only have 1 more than before, and you still have the nerve to brag about it. So, Jun Changxiao said, can you beat 5 martial saints alone now? No problem. Perhaps because of his restored strength, Zilin Demon King always behaved very proudly, his nose almost raised to the sky and shoulder to shoulder with the sun. In the cafeteria, the purple hall master, who was so arrogant just now, no longer cares about his status, and is wolfing down the food. A month of punishment just ended today, so he can not only have 3 meals a day, but also refills. Only when you have it again, you will know how to cherish it. After finishing a bowl of rice, Zitting Master licked all the rice grains clean, then raised his thumb and said, Doo-doo, your cooking skills are getting better and better. Liu Wanshi sat next to him and said distressedly, Zitting Master has almost no meat on his face, because he only eats 1 meal this month. As the sect's gold medal chef, what he cares most about is that his fellow disciples are hungry or thin. He is especially worried that senior brother Su will not eat well and take so unholy sect, so he decided to wait for him to come back one day and make sure to make a good supplement for him. Zilin Demon King sighed, it's my fault for not completing the task assigned to me. At this time, if he knew that he had accidentally helped Suzuyomo gain higher recognition in Takeso Unholy Sect, he would definitely overturn the table and go to the sect master to have a good argument. Why should I be punished to reduce 2 meals out of 3? It's okay. Liu Wanshi said with a smile, it will be back in a few days. Yeah. Zilin Demon King put the empty bowl aside and grinned. Another bowl of fried rice. Alas. It's sad to see a demon king fall to this point. Those men. Old NIU came over and said with a smile, "Give me a bowl too." Okay. Everything has changed. This demon king from the upper realm has recovered his strength to the level before he was sealed. It is an absolute help for me to enter the plain battlefield for revenge. Jun Changxiao sat in the study and thought. Being suppressed by the earth character strongman is an unforgettable hatred, and he will never forget it. What's more, the system mentions it every day. Old Ding. King Bakyu. Now there is also a purple demon king. Jun Changxiao is full of confidence in his revenge, and he is also full of confidence in entering the plain battlefield for the second time and doing crazy things. Of course. At the same time, he was also looking forward to it. How much contribution value and reward can be given by settling the two tasks together? Damn it. I can't wait. The more he thought about it, the more agitated Jun Changxiao became. Sect Master Li Luoqiu said, Xiaomo sent a message and signed up for the Outer Sect Disciple Assessment to be held by Taixo Unholy Sect in a month. It seems that this is the right time. Jun Chang smiled. For a month, Xiaomo has been doing tasks under the leadership of Xia Xuan. The difficulty is relatively high, and the rewards are very rich, which has accumulated capital for her to practice and become stronger. The Outer Sect disciple named He Zhangying once came to cause trouble. The two of them made an appointment to fight, and will decide the winner in the Outer Sect assessment. Li Luoqiu said. Jun Chang smiled and said, dare to provoke the disciples trained by this seat. I really don't know how to write the word death. Regarding the battle agreement between Xiaomo and He Zhangying, the Outer Sect of Taixo and Holy Sect also discussed widely, but most of them supported the latter. After all, he entered the sect early, and was the most likely to become an inner sect disciple. Creaky. The door was pushed open. Sun Yingquan walked in quickly and roared, Junior brother Su, did you get kicked in the head by a donkey? You actually agreed to the fight with He Zhangying. Xiaomo paused his practice and scratched his head, saying, he has been humiliating me, and I couldn't help but agree. You. Sun Yingquan sat down and said, how about this? I'll ask my father to come forward and cancel this fight. He was thinking about Xiaomo. After all, He Zhangying is very powerful. Since you agreed, you have to fight. What's more, Xiaomo suddenly said seriously, I also want to use my strength to tell others that although I, Su Gaosheng, have a low status, I'm not necessarily a soft persimmon. Sun Yingquan looked stunned. The resolute look in his junior brother's eyes reminded him of the scene in the Yunling Mountains, when he did not surrender to the powerful spirit beast. Okay, I understand. Sun Yingquan stood up, patted him on the shoulder, and encouraged him, no matter how the outside world doubts you, senior brother will always stand on your side and cheer for you. Thank you. Xiaomo smiled. Sun Yingquan punched him lightly on the chest with his fist, pretending to be angry and said, say thank you again, I'll beat you up. Xiaomo laughed innocently. Here. Sun Yingquan handed over a space ring and said, there are 100 natural spirit stones in it, which are saved by my brother through frugality. You can use it to practice, and you must knock that guy to the ground when the time comes. This is too expensive. Xiaomo and Sun Yingquan looked at each other, took it without saying anything, and vowed, I won't let my brother down. I will definitely defeat He Zhangying in the Outer Sect assessment. It's decided. Not for my own undercover cause. Just for Sun Yingquan's act of helping him in times of need. I must win the game. He Zhangying, a disciple of Taixo and Shengzang. One sigh. Xiaomo, get serious. No one can stop me. Chapter 867 I fly. Su Gaosheng has only been an Outer Sect disciple for a few months. Although he performed well in the Yunling Mountains and received 500 merit points, he must have a problem with his brain to challenge brother He. During this period, Elder Xia's granddaughter has been dragging him to do tasks and has received many rewards. He also often goes to the Aura Array to practice. His strength should have improved a lot. After all, brother He is a genuine martial master. Even if he, a martial master, practices a lot, he will definitely not be able to beat him. The disciples of Taixo and Holy Sect were all discussing the fight between Xiaomo and He Zhangying. It even alarmed the top leaders. So, at the routine meeting, they took the initiative to talk about it. Ha ha ha. Elder Sun laughed and said, Su Gaosheng is really brave to challenge He Zhongying, an outer sect disciple who has been in the sect for many years. His son has a good relationship with Su Xiaomo, so it is reasonable that he will definitely stand on the side of the latter. Moreover, he has also provided a lot of help to Su Xiaomo during this period, to buy time to enter the aura array. After all, He Zhongying has the potential to become an inner sect disciple. It's a bit presumptuous to fight him. It's not surprising that he stood up in the Yunling Mountains and dared to fight with a fellow disciple of a higher level. The third elder said, Elder Zaya, I heard that your granddaughter has been very close to that kid recently? Yes. Elder Zaya nodded and said, since that incident, Shiyun has been very optimistic about this kid and often provides him with martial arts help. It seems so. The third elder said, he may not have agreed to He Zhongying's challenge on impulse, but because he is sure. The elder of the Gongfa pavilion next to him said, not long ago, this kid exchanged 500 merit points for the 6-style flame palm and the 9-curve flowing shadow step. He should have been prepared. What? Elder Sun and Elder Zaya were surprised. The 6-style flame palm and the 9-curve flowing shadow step are top grade martial arts. Although the quality is not top notch, it is extremely difficult to practice. The third elder smiled and said, this Su Gaosheng may bring us unexpected surprises. Creaky. The door was pushed open, and Sun Yingquan hurried in and said, Gaosheng, you used 500 merit points to choose the 6-style flame palm and 9-curve flowing shadow step. Yeah. Su Xiaomo nodded. Damn. Sun Yingquan sat down and said with a look of despair, although the levels of these two martial arts are not low, they are extremely difficult to practice. It is a complete waste to use merit points on them. Su Xiaomo scratched his head and said, I didn't know either. I just thought the introduction was very impressive, so I exchanged them without thinking. Hey. Sun Yingquan said, tell me, I will accompany you to the Kung Fu Pavilion, and I will definitely be able to use the least merit points to exchange for the most cost-effective martial arts. Call me Brother Sun next time. Su Xiaomo said. Well, I won't disturb you from practicing. Sun Yingquan stood up, but before leaving, he said, I heard from my father that the third elder seems to think highly of you. The third elder thinks highly of me? Su Xiaomo thought to himself, it seems that the preparations I have made during this period have made him think that there is a possibility of defeating He Zhongying. The training facilities of Taixu and Shenzong are far inferior to those of Wanguzhangzang. As a martial king, he would just waste time if he went in, which would not help his cultivation at all. He had to act, even if it didn't help, because he had to create the impression that defeating He Zhongying was not due to luck, but due to hard practice, so as not to arouse suspicion from the higher-ups. Of course, only by exposing his own qualifications a little can he be better appreciated and rise to prominence. Look, it's Su Gaosheng. This guy hasn't left his room recently. He must be practicing hard. The gap between him and senior brother he is not just 1 or 2 steps. It's useless to practice at the last minute. Su Xiaomo, who was walking to the cafeteria, heard everyone's discussion and smiled. He didn't care if the disciples looked down on him. He just wanted to let them know that he had been working hard to cultivate during this period of time. In this way, it would not be abrupt to win against He Zhongying. It must be said, Su Xiaomo's calculations were very precise, and the chess moves were getting bigger and bigger. Wanguzhang. Although Jun Changxiao was not at the scene, he listened to Li Luoqiu's reports all the time, and highly affirmed what Su Xiaomo had done recently in Taixu and Shenzong. This disciple of his was experiencing a plot that only the protagonist would appear in, and he did it very well, which not only kept the suspense, but also provided a good explanation for his own strength. Xiaomo. Jun Changxiao said to himself, the outer sect assessment is a springboard. As long as you grasp the right measure, you will be more like a fish in water in Taixu and Shenzong. Hoo-hoo. Suddenly, the momentum of promotion emerged. Jun Changxiao released his spiritual thoughts and smiled with satisfaction. Not bad, not bad. Zhu Ji has also broken through to the peak Martial King. Half a month later, Li Fei, Shan Qi, Long Xiang and other core disciples successively entered the peak Martial King. This is the Surge's talisman. Jun Changxiao took out the talisman generously and said, after using it, you can temporarily break through a major realm. The sect master has a lot of good things, and Li Qingyang and others have long been accustomed to it, so they took the talisman and crushed it, and their realm instantly advanced from the king level to the emperor level. Oh my god, it's amazing. The feeling of improvement just now is like really breaking through the martial emperor. Everyone was stunned. Jun Changxiao said, the function of the Surge's talisman is not to make your strength stronger, but to let you experience the feeling of promotion and the higher level realm one step faster, so that it is easier to break through. I see. Li Qingyang, Xiao Zuji and others sat down cross-legged, trying to experience the feeling of promotion just now, and feel the cultivation they have now. Except for Yi Xingqian and He Wudi, the martial emperor is a new and unknown level for them. If they can experience it one step faster, they will definitely benefit a lot. Swish. After a while, Li Fei stood up, pushed the ground with his right foot, and communicated with some kind of energy and action. The whole person flew up, and then he couldn't help laughing excitedly. Ha ha ha, I'm flying. Ah, I'm so envious. Li Shangshan said with his head in his hands. His dream is to fly. Breaking through the martial emperor and having the power of flying will undoubtedly realize his childhood dream. It's a pity that his current realm is only the 7th grade martial king and it's still early to break through the peak. Not good. At this moment, Li Fei, who flew high in the sky, changed his face. His body suddenly lost balance and fell on the martial arts field with a bang. The power of flying needs time to adapt, and warriors who use it for the first time have the experience of losing balance and falling. Let me try it too. Li Qingyang stood up and slowly rose into the air. As expected of a man with the word stable, he was always careful in flying, and didn't fall down tragically. Plop. Li Fei on the other side took off for the second time, but because he was too hasty, he lost control of his body, and fell to the ground again. Then, with 2 big bumps on his head, he said, I just don't believe it. Swish. Swish. Xiao Zuji, Long Xiang and others flew up one after another relying on the remaining time of the Surge's talisman. So, above the outer courtyard of the Eternal Ancient Sect, disciples could be seen going up and down, swaying and practicing flying. The scene was once very embarrassing. Although it was a little embarrassing, there was no doubt that when these core disciples really stepped into the emperor level and had the power of flying, they would be able to adapt quickly and well. This is also another benefit brought by the Surge's talisman. I'm so envious. Practice hard and become stronger. Sooner or later, we will be able to soar in the sky like our senior brother. Chapter 868. It's bringing hatred to me again. Half a month later. The day when the Outer Sect disciple assessment of Takesu Unholy Sect began. Crack. Suzuomo pushed open the door and strode out wearing a brand new Outer Sect disciple uniform. Sect Master. While adjusting the wristband, he looked up at the rising sun and said to himself, the disciple is going to have fun. Xiaomo. Jun Changxiao, who was in Wangu Sect and had just finished morning exercises with his disciples, stood alone in front of the hall and said with his hands behind his back, today's Outer Sect assessment of Takesu Unholy Sect is destined to be a stage for you to show yourself. Although the sun had just risen, the fairy-like clouds in the outer courtyard of Takesu Unholy Sect had not completely dissipated, and it looked quite extraordinary. This kind of sect with a long history is indeed not comparable to Wangu Sect in terms of heritage. One after another, disciples appeared outside the martial arts field and lined up in an orderly manner. These people were just spectators, and the real protagonists were the hundreds of Outer Sect disciples standing in the east area. They were dressed in tight clothes and had heroic figures. It has to be said that as the top sect in the Xinjiang continent, the disciples recruited are very powerful. It can be seen from that station that they are definitely not ordinary people. However, some of the disciples who are about to take the test have hot eyes, while others are more nervous. The Outer Sect test is held as scheduled on a fixed date every year. Although the gold content is not as high as the sect competition, it is also an important event to evaluate the disciples. If you can get excellent results in the test, you can get a varying amount of merit points and even be valued by the top leaders. No wonder the emotions are very complicated. Suzuomo stood in the crowd, and she was also very nervous on the surface, but in fact, she was very stable in her heart. Before joining the Wongu sect, if she participated in such an assessment, she would definitely panic. But now she not only has the cultivation of martial king, but also has experienced various life and death experiences with the sect master and fellow disciples, and has long trained a strong heart. Boy, he's Ying, who was separated from him by several disciples, said lightly, "You really dare to come? I signed up for the test, of course I have to come." Suzuomo's face showed a harmless smile. This expression and this smile made Ying's eyes gradually cold. Seeing this, the other contestants immediately realized that senior brother he was angry. If they met in the assessment, junior brother Su would be in trouble. Junior brother, Xia Xuan in the distance said coldly, "Don't let me down. This woman." Suzuomo collapsed and said secretly, "She is trying to make me hate her again." Sure enough, the coldness in Ying's eyes became stronger. The disciples who participated in the assessment and came to watch the game all thought secretly, Elder Xia's granddaughter took the initiative to talk to that guy in this situation. Who would believe that the two of them have no relationship? Ahem. At this time, the third elder in charge of the outer sect assessment came out of the sect hall and then announced loudly with his hands behind his back, "The outer sect assessment will start now. Please draw your number cards and choose your opponents." Because it is held many times every year, the opening ceremony is very simple. Swish, swish. Hundreds of contestants stepped onto the temporary elevated martial arts arena similar to a ring, and then reached into a specific box to select their own tokens. Suzuomo also went on stage, just as she was about to draw. "Elder," Ying said, "Junior brother Su and I have a fight. Can we fight without drawing a number plate?" "Yes." The third elder agreed. Takes Unholy Sect does not allow disciples to fight privately, but allows to resolve conflicts by fighting. Someone whispered, "Brother, he is worried that junior brother Su will be eliminated by other opponents and will not be able to meet in the assessment. Junior brother Su will be eliminated in the first round." Many disciples cast sympathetic eyes on Suzuomo. In their hearts, Ying is the favorite to win the outer sect assessment this time, no doubt about it. "Since you have a fight, let's go on stage and fight first," the third elder said. He knew exactly what Suzuomo was busy with recently, so he was very curious whether this boy could bring him unexpected surprises. Swish. Ying landed on the martial arts arena gracefully and said, "Junior brother Su, please come on stage." Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, Suzuomo walked up in a very clumsy way, then bowed humbly and said, "Senior brother He, please give me your guidance." Everyone's mouth twitched slightly. This is not a competition, this is a fight. And senior brother He is fighting for love, so he will be very serious when he starts fighting. I bet that junior brother Su can only last 10 rounds at most. 10 rounds is too much. With senior brother He's cultivation, he can handle him in 3 or 5 rounds at most. The outer disciples watching the fight were all discussing and looking down on Suzuomo. Only Sun Yingquan, who was standing in the crowd, shouted at the top of his voice, "Junior brother Su, come on." Junior brother Su has been in the sect for a short time, and he has become a brother to elder Sun's son. He is quite capable. Isn't it just playing both sides and flattering? What real ability can he have? There are still some disciples who are full of contempt for Suzuomo's smooth and flattering behavior. Some really can't stand it, thinking that they have to rely on real skills to survive and take the unholy sect, while others are purely envious of themselves for not being able to flatter, so their mentality has turned into jealousy. "It can start," the third elder said. Swish. Ying stepped out first. His peak martial arts cultivation fully erupted, and then he threw a heavy punch, and the space suddenly shook. Triple crossing the skyfist. A disciple exclaimed. This is a top-grade boxing technique of the Taixu Unholy Sect, and its characteristic is that it can produce the effect of vibrating the space when it is performed. Not bad. An elder praised. He has already comprehended the realm of great success. Swish. At this moment, Suzuomo twisted his body backwards. Although the movement was not very good looking, he easily avoided Ying's bombardment and then stepped on the points frequently with his feet, forming a strange posture. 9 curve flowing shadow step. The third elder and other senior officials were stunned. They knew that Suzume had exchanged this body movement secret book, and they should not be surprised when she performed it, but they did not expect that she would perform it so smoothly. It felt like she had comprehended the ultimate. Swish, swish. The 9 curve flowing shadow step was performed, and the 9 points rotated frequently, interweaving the after images of flowing light, which shocked the disciples watching the battle. Even the cold and proud Xia Xuan was in disbelief and thought to herself, he can comprehend the top grade body skills to such an extent in such a short time. His aptitude and comprehension are definitely not ordinary. The third elder and others also realized this problem, and couldn't help but mutter in their hearts. Could it be that this boy's spiritual roots are not of the middle grade? The Taixo Unholy Sect is the same as the Wangu Sect in recruiting disciples. Usually, they will not take the initiative to test the spiritual roots of applicants, but select them based on various assessments. Spiritual roots only determine the upper limit and speed of cultivation. Some people with relatively poor spiritual roots may achieve something if they have perseverance and hard work. After all, there are only a few geniuses with high aptitudes. If a sect wants to develop in a balanced way for a long time, it will naturally select more mediocre teenagers to cultivate. Otherwise, it is definitely unrealistic for all the disciples in the sect to have top grade spiritual roots. This unrealistic thing, maybe the Wangu sect can do it. P.S. There will be 3 consecutive updates in the next few days. I have manuscripts saved, so I'm hard. Don't worry, everyone, the explosion will come. Chapter 869 Shocking everyone. It is impossible for the sects in the Xinjiang continent to have all disciples with top grade spiritual roots. But the Wangu sect may be able to do it, as long as Jun Changxiao does not use his contribution points to exchange for other items, but uses them to exchange for top grade qualification transformation fluid. In the long run, it is not impossible to achieve top grade spiritual roots for all disciples. Suzume, who came to take Jun Changxiao as an undercover, claimed that he had middle grade spiritual roots. Therefore, when he performed the 9 bend flowing shadow step like flowing water, the top leaders immediately determined that it would be impossible to comprehend such a level in a short time without strong enough spiritual roots. How is it possible? Zhang Ying was also shocked. He had learned the 9 bend flowing shadow step, and after comprehending it for several months, he felt that it was not as cost effective as other body techniques, so he chose to give up. Now, the guy who just got started not only learned it, but also reached the level of the existence of the flowing light after image, which is definitely the ultimate comprehension. Hoo-hoo. At this moment, an explosion sounded in his ears. A palm print that seemed to carry fire came from the side, so fast and powerful that Zhang Ying was shocked. Not good. Boom. Dang dang dang. Zhang Ying was hit and staggered back. After stabilizing himself, he looked at the faint flame gathered in Suzume's right fist and said in disbelief, 6 style flame palm. Swish. Suzume said nothing and moved again with the 9 curved flowing shadow step, and then took advantage of the opportunity to perform the 6 style flame palm, which immediately caused waves of heat in the martial arts arena. The disciples and contestants watching the battle were stunned. Suzume and Zhang Ying had made an appointment to fight a month ago. Except for a few disciples, most of them believed that the latter would easily defeat the former. After all, they were not at the same level. But now the two of them fought, and the unpopular Su Gaosheng performed the 6 style flame palm and the 9 curved flowing shadow step, and everyone present naturally couldn't believe it, including Sun Yingqin, Xia Xuan, and the senior leaders of Taixo Unholy Sect. Swish, 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 boom, boom. In the martial arts arena, Suzume used his body movements to move frequently, and when he found a flaw at the right time, he blasted it with the domineering 6 style flaming palm. This fighting style is both elegant and unpredictable, and also hard and powerful, which is very pleasing to the eye. However, it also made Zhang Ying suffer. Unable to keep up with the opponent's rhythm in a short period of time, he could only fall into the passive position step by step, and was blasted step by step, and staggered back on the stage. Third elder. An elder said in surprise, this Su Gaosheng has the level of martial arts. With only 2 martial arts that have been comprehended to the extreme, it is difficult for Suzaomo to defeat Izangying, who has reached the peak of martial arts, so it is necessary to release the realm to the level of martial arts. It was not long ago that he broke through the martial arts master, but a month later, he has the level of martial arts master. Did this boy deliberately hide his cultivation, or did he practice to get there? An elder questioned. From a normal perspective, the top leaders are more willing to believe that Suzaomo has been hiding his cultivation. It should be both. The third elder guest, Elder Son, said, "My son gave all the 100 natural spirit stones that he had stored for many years to this kid. He has been practicing very hard during this period. It is not surprising that he has reached the level of Wuzang." Shuyan also gave 50 natural spirit stones. Elder Zaya said. After hearing what the two said, the elders who had doubts were relieved. One of them said, "No wonder this kid broke through to Wuzang in such a short time. It turns out that he was given so many resources." Suzaomo's efforts were not in vain. Although his sudden strength shocked everyone, the previous preparation and the natural spirit stones given by Sun Yingpan and Zai Xuan did not make the senior management feel too abrupt. Of course, he also knew that no matter what the result of this battle was, he would be subject to the verification of his spiritual root qualifications. So while attacking Izangying, he secretly said, "What level should I release? The holy product qualifications must not be revealed, because it would cause an uproar and even be interrogated and investigated by the sect many times. Although the background has been well prepared, if there is any negligence, there is a possibility of exposing the identity. The top grade is too ordinary." Suzaomo thought for a while and made a decision. "Let's go for the best grade spiritual route. The best grade spiritual route is already very good in the second and third rate sects, but it can only be considered as a mediocre existence in the top tier sects." Bang! Suzaomo took the opportunity to seize the floor and use the 6-style flame palm to hit Izangying's back. The corners of the disciples watching the fight twitched. Many people thought that senior brother he could get rid of Su Gaosheng within 10 moves, but the two fought for nearly 30 moves. Not only did the former fail to do so, but he was constantly suppressed by the other party. Damn it. Izangying, who stabilized his body, had a cold and fierce look in his eyes. He was definitely unacceptable to be beaten by a new disciple who made him embarrassed. Hoo-hoo. He clenched his fists suddenly, and strong spiritual energy burst out of his body. He was angry. He was going to launch a desperate counterattack. Swish. Just at this moment, Suzaomo went around and suddenly blasted out another 6-style flame palm, knocking Izangying, who was about to explode, back several meters away. He only slightly released his martial arts skills to the level of martial master, and he could beat him without knowing what to do with the 2 martial arts of the Taixo and Saint sect. This guy's really rubbish. It's not that Izangying is rubbish either. With his cultivation level, he can suppress any disciple of the same level in a second or third rate sect. It's a pity that Suzaomo, who came out of the Eternal Ancient sect, has experienced various tempering and training. Even if he is only a first or second grade martial master, he can rely on his rich combat experience to suppress him comprehensively. Since you want to make a fuss, make a big one. Swish. Suzaomo quickly approached and then launched an overwhelming offensive. The hot palm print spread in the martial arts field, and a wave of heat swept in all directions. What he had to do was not to give Izangying a chance to counterattack and completely crush him to death. Swish, 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 boom, boom, boom. Under the intensive offensive, Izangying was beaten back step by step, and he didn't even have the opportunity to take the opportunity to accumulate momentum and explode. It can be said that he was extremely embarrassed. The corners of the outer sect disciple's mouth twitched violently. He was the favorite to win the championship, but he was beaten by an outer disciple who had just joined the sect for a short time without any resistance. Oh my god. Sun Yingpan was still in a state of confusion and said in a daze, "Gaosheng turned out to be so strong." Zhao Xuan thought to himself, he has figured it out and plans to use his true strength to tell his fellow disciples that he is not just a flatterer. Boom. His ungeing wanted to explode, but this kind of fighting method that can only rely on shouting is completely unworkable, so Suzaomo punched him in the face, staggered back a few steps, and almost sat on the ground. Not on the same level. The elders shook their heads. From the brief fight, they have seen that, although Suzaomo's cultivation is not as high as his ungeing's, his combat experience and use of martial arts are completely superior. Surprise. A big surprise. A smile appeared on the face of the third elder. There are many disciples joining the top sects every year, and it is natural that some unexpected geniuses will appear. However, the third elder felt that, although Su Gaosheng's cultivation was not high, he was very mature in fighting and using martial arts. Without the guidance of a famous teacher, it would be impossible to reach such a level. Boom. At this moment, his ungeing, who was completely suppressed, could not withstand the overwhelming bombardment, and was finally beaten to fall to the martial arts arena. Then he sat on the ground with a hideous face and a strong pain all over his body. Brother Suzaomo stood on the stage and bowed. Thank you. First battle. The third elder did not hesitate and immediately announced, Su Gaosheng wins. His ungeing is eliminated. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 870 successfully won recognition from senior management. Suzaomo defeated his ungeing, who had the best chance of becoming an inner disciple of the lower realm. After the third elder announced loudly, the scene entered a brief calm, and even a pin drop could be heard clearly. Ha ha ha. Suddenly, Sun Yingquan laughed and shouted loudly, Junior brother Su is awesome. He and Suzaomo already had a very close relationship, and now he was absolutely overjoyed to defeat the seemingly unattainable his ungeing. Awesome. So Junior brother Su is so strong. We all underestimated him. Although the disciples who originally thought that his ungeing would win were slapped in the face, they all looked at Suzaomo with admiration. Defeating a powerful opponent with upright strength on the ring will naturally gain the respect of warriors. Of course, if there is no foreshadowing, many disciples will subconsciously think, how can Su Gaosheng defeat his ungeing? Why? With hard work and various resources. Puff. His ungeing, who was sitting on the ground, spurted out a mouthful of blood. He obviously couldn't bear that he would lose to a new disciple and be eliminated in the first round of the outer sect assessment. Contestants number 1 and number 2, come on stage. The third elder shouted. Although Suzaomo's strong performance gave him a big surprise, the outer sect assessment had to continue. Swish, swish. The contestants who drew number 1 and number 2 came on stage to fight. So far, the outer sect assessment began to proceed in an orderly manner. As the winner, Suzaomo only needed to wait for the next round. Bang. Brotherkin, thank you. On the stage, Suzaomo bowed. Under the stage, the disciple surnamed Kin bowed and said, Junior brother Su has a strong cultivation base, and senior brother is convinced of the defeat. After defeating the favorite to win the championship, his ungeing, everyone was not surprised that Suzaomo won the second round, and even concluded that the champion of this assessment must be him. In a similar fighting mode, Suzaomo continued the fine tradition of the eternal ancient sect to make the fight simpler and more concise. No. After a few words, the outer sect assessment has reached the finals. Suzaomo still relied on 2 martial arts to easily defeat the opponent, and won the championship of this assessment. Too easy. There is no suspense at all. The disciples were speechless. Thinking carefully, the battle between Suzaomo and his ungeing was the only exciting one in the entire outer sect assessment. The first round of the battle can be called the final battle. Su Gaosheng won the first place in this outer sect assessment, and was awarded 500 merit points and 20 natural spirit stones. The third elder announced loudly, and after the award ceremony, he said, come to the hall. Yes. Suzaomo said inwardly, the result of being a vain person is to be the focus of attention. In the hall, Suzaomo stood honestly. Several elders sat in front, releasing their spiritual thoughts all the time, hoping to find out everything about this kid. Unfortunately, once the hermit cultivation technique from the upper world is in operation, it only gives them what they want to see. Little guy. The third elder said, do you want to tell me yourself, or do I? And others ask. Report to the elder. Suzaomo said loudly, my real name is Sujintang, and I live in Sujiagao, Nanhuangsao. When I was young, I met a senior who called himself Jun Changxiao. Then I worshipped him as my teacher and practiced martial arts with him for several years. Now that things have come to this, I can't hide it anymore. He took the initiative to say it, and several elders nodded. Jun Changxiao. The third elder touched his chin and said, I haven't heard of this person. Report to the elder. Suzaomo said, Master once said that he rarely sets foot in the martial arts world and likes to travel among mountains and rivers. So he is a hermit. There are many warriors in Xinjiang continent who are like the sands of the Ganges river. There may be many strong people who are indifferent to fame and fortune and live a life of leisure. The most famous one is Taixuan Liao Ren. Such a super strong man who can cross the void has only passed down 2 mental methods above the divine level, and there are very few other deeds. So, you already had the cultivation level of martial sect before joining the sect? Report to the elder. I had a breakthrough during this month of practice, and it was also thanks to the sect's resources and the natural spirit stones given by senior brother Sun and senior sister Zaya. To be able to break through to martial sect in a short period of time relying on resources, it is difficult to do without extremely high spiritual roots. Come. The third elder waved his hand and took out something like a glass ball and said, put your palm on it. Suzaomo knew that this was used to test spiritual roots, so he took 2 steps forward, put his right hand on it, and then used the hidden cultivation technique to suppress the level of his spiritual roots. Hoo-hoo. After a while, the glass ball flickered and showed a slightly reddish color. The third elder said, it turns out to be a top-grade spiritual root. The other elders whispered to each other. Suzaomo thought to himself, the hermit cultivation technique given by the sect master is really amazing. It can even suppress the level of spiritual roots. With a top-grade spiritual root, relying on a large amount of spiritual stones and resources as well as one's own efforts, it is normal to break through from a martial artist to a martial master in a short period of time. Many elders came to the conclusion and understood Suzaomo's strength. Little guy. The third elder smiled and said, you hide very deeply. Suzaomo scratched his head and said, when I went down the mountain, my master once told me to be low-key and never show off. The elders laughed. It is reasonable for a hermit to teach a low-key disciple. Go down. The third elder waved his hand. Yes. Suzaomo retreated, returned to his residence, picked up the teapot and drank it. When he was in the main hall, facing a group of high-ranking members of the Taixuan Holy Sect spying on him, he was very nervous, fearing that he would be exposed and questioned by the high-ranking members. This time, if I show my top-grade spiritual roots, they will definitely investigate my identity. I hope I don't reveal anything. Suzaomo thought to himself. Sure enough, the elders in the main hall were still discussing Suzaomo, and they had already ordered the intelligence hall to investigate Sujintang as soon as possible. It's not that they suspected he was an undercover agent, but his top-grade qualifications were already excellent, and a large sect naturally had to follow the rules to thoroughly investigate his identity. It was not like the Eternal Ancient Sect. Because there were various restrictions, they didn't worry about leaking secrets, and they didn't check the identities of the disciples too much. As long as they passed the assessment, they would be accepted as disciples. The Taixuan Holy Sect acted quickly. In just a few days, they found news about Sujintang, which was consistent with what Suzaomo said. There really was a person named Sujintang in Xinjiang continent, and he did live in Sujiagao, Nanhuangsao, and had top-grade spiritual roots, but he left home when he was 8 or 9 years old. Where is he? In the Eternal Ancient Sect. Taixuan Holy Sect certainly cannot investigate this aspect and Elder Junction. Everyone. The third elder said, Sujintang has good spiritual roots, and he became a disciple of a hermit at a young age. I think he is worth cultivating. This boy is very good at dealing with people, and he doesn't like to show off in front of others. He is indeed a good seedling to be cultivated. Elder Sun expressed his opinion. As long as there is a chance, he will definitely speak well of Suzaomo in front of the elders. After all, his son is there. Elder Zaya said, you can give him this opportunity. 2 elders expressed their opinions, and other senior leaders also agreed. So after thinking about it, the 3rd elder announced, lists Su Jintang as one of the members of the Inspection Pavilion. The Inspection Pavilion is a special department of Takeso Unholy Sect. The disciples who enter it all have various potentials and enjoy certain martial arts resources. If they have outstanding performance in the future, it will be no problem to be promoted to the inner sect. Sect Master. When Suzaomo learned from Sun Yingqin that she had become a member of the Inspection Pavilion, she secretly said, my disciple has gained the trust of the top leaders. The next step is to be promoted to a core disciple. Jun Changxiao, who was in the Wangu sect, leaned back in his chair and crossed his legs. After receiving the information reported by Liluo Qiu, he smiled and said, my dear disciple, when the day comes to close the net, I hope you will have become one of the most important top leaders in the Takeso Unholy Sect. Chapter 871. Don't let your mind run away. Jun Changxiao has no time to close a net. So how far Suzaomo's undercover journey will go, and how far he can go is still unknown. However, with this guy's smooth personality, and deliberately releasing his spiritual roots and cultivation, and with the help of Sun Yingqin, Xia Xuan and 2 elders, it will be easy for him to climb up step by step. The plan is going perfectly, but I still have to keep a low profile to avoid causing trouble in the sect. The water of Takeso Unholy Sect is very deep. The outer sect is just the tip of the iceberg. There are also inner sects and core disciples above. He naturally has to tread on thin ice and cannot relax at all. To be precise, Suzaomo is taking the protagonist's growth route in the sect, but he can't be like a real protagonist who can do everything in a second. In the future, he will also be more deliberate in contact with Xia Xuan, because Elder Xia's prestige in the elders group is higher than Elder Sun. Of course. After being instructed by Elder Wei, Suzaomo has always maintained a close but distant relationship with the cold woman. Let's go and do the mission. One day, Xia Xuan appeared again. I have to go. Okay. For several days in a row, the 2 often appeared in the mission pavilion together, took the mission together and left. After Zhang Ying was defeated, he seemed to disappear. In a world dominated by martial arts, if you don't have the strength to face competitors, you deserve to be a single dog for life. Sorry, I'm not targeting some single readers. Please don't be sad or discouraged. As long as you work hard, you will definitely continue to be single. Junior brother Su and junior sister Xia are getting closer and closer. Although I feel that Su Jintang is not worthy of Xia Xuan. After all, she has a top grade spiritual root and has more chances than us. TSK, junior brother Su is really a hidden talent. No wonder he defeated senior brother He. As Suzaomo and Xia Xuan came into contact more and more frequently, there were more and more discussions about the 2 in the outer sect of Takeso Unholy Sect, and even speculation that they might have already established a relationship. Takeso Unholy Sect does not oppose the love between disciples, which is quite open. Suzaomo had naturally heard about the outside world's discussions, and said helplessly, my relationship with her is not as exaggerated as you say. Xia Xuan has a cold personality and is not talkative. Although the 2 of them have been in contact more and more often, they have been taking tasks, doing tasks, and handing in tasks throughout the process. Even if they occasionally communicate, they are talking about martial arts. Of course, Suzaomo hopes to establish a relationship with this girl that goes beyond fellow disciples. After all, it can make friends with Elder Xia, which is beneficial to future development in the sect. However, every time he thinks of his true identity as a disciple of the Eternal Ancient Sect, if he lets someone fall in love with him, and then after the sect master closes the net, he says to her, sorry, I'm actually an undercover agent. It must be too damn stupid. Don't worry about feelings. Suzaomo said secretly. The Eternal Ancient Sect and the Takeso Unholy Sect have no hatred, and going undercover is not for sabotage, so he must restrain himself and leave without any burden after completing the task. What are you thinking about? On the way to do the task, Xia Xuan looked at him. No, I didn't think about anything. Recently, the news about you and me has been spreading like wildfire in the sect. Yes. Xia Xuan stopped and turned her back to Suzaomo. I just decided to help you because I think you have great potential. Don't let the rumors from the outside world make you think too much. Suzaomo thought to herself speechlessly, what am I thinking about? Of course. Xia Xuan said, it's not that you are not worthy of me, but I'm not interested in love between men and women. After that, she walked straight away. The corners of Suzaomo's mouth twitched slightly, and she thought to herself, does this woman think I will pursue her? Senior sister. She hurriedly chased after her and said seriously, actually, I'm not interested in love between men and women either. This is the best. Xia Xuan said. Boom. Boom. In the mountains, a huge 9th grade beast raised its thick forelimbs and bombarded crazily. Ice sword key. Ding. 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 Xia Xuan came with a sword, condensed the cold and sharp sword energy and hit the opponent's stone-like skin, and a crisp sound was heard immediately. Roar, the big guy roared, and then swung his thick tail fiercely. Not good. Xia Xuan's face changed slightly. Senior sister, be careful. At this moment, Suzaomo rushed over from the side, pushed the woman who could not dodge away, and was hit hard in the chest by the tail. The whole person flew out and sank into the stone wall with a bang. Wow. He spat out a mouthful of blood, then rushed over with a 9-bend flowing shadow step, hugged Xia Xuan who had just stabilized her body, and fled from here as quickly as possible. Night fell. A bonfire was lit in the cave. Xia Xuan sat beside him, leaning on the pheasant in a rather flustered manner. It seemed that she was not very good at it. Wow. Suzaomo, who was healing, spurted out a ball of black blood, and her brows gradually relaxed. Are you okay? Xia Xuan said. Suzaomo replied, yeah, it's okay. Xia Xuan said nothing, and continued to roast the pheasant. The atmosphere fell into an awkward state again. Suzaomo was accustomed to this kind of rare verbal communication, so she could adapt to it, and stood up and walked over, saying, it's all burnt, let me do it. Xia Xuan stepped aside. Suzaomo took out a cleaned pheasant, then skillfully stuck it on a wooden stick, and began to roast it. Although Xia Xuan didn't say anything, her eyes were always staring, as if she was recording the whole process, so that she could do it herself next time. Senior sister. After a while, Suzaomo said, junior brother feels that sometimes you are too reckless, such as the last time we went to Yunshanling and this time, you acted rashly without confirming the target's strength. I'm happy to do so. Xia Xuan said lightly. This woman has not realized her mistake yet. How lucky she must be to be alive until now. A cold woman is definitely a chat terminator. Suzaomo simply stopped talking. Here. A quarter of an hour later, she handed over the roasted pheasant and said, you can eat it. Xia Xuan took it without hesitation. After eating, she pointed outside and said, old rules. Okay. Suzaomo stood up. The so-called old rules are that, if they camp outdoors, she sleeps in the cave, and he sleeps outside the cave. After all, there is a difference between men and women. In fact, they have rested in the cave at the same time before, but Suzaomo turned over when she was sleeping, which made Xia Xuan suddenly alert. A cold current broke out and almost froze him into ice. From then on, Suzaomo kept an absolute safe distance from this woman, saying, I'm going outside to be on guard. Tap. When she just stood up, the exquisite small bottle stuffed in her belt fell down. Xia Xuan took a look and said lightly, didn't I finish this bottle of Kingsinbingji pills a long time ago? Why are you still carrying it with you? Suzaomo picked it up and wiped off the dust on it with her sleeves, saying, senior sister is the first girl to give me something, so I naturally have to keep it well as a souvenir. If Elder Wei was present at this time, he would definitely give a thumbs up and praise, young man, you are teachable. Idiot. Xia Xuan said lightly, but the ice layer surrounding her heart melted a little bit under the inadvertent touch. I'm going out. Come back and just guard the door. This, okay. In the middle of the night, Suzaomo turned over habitually and suddenly felt a wave of cold air approaching, instantly enveloping her whole body and shivering with cold. He suddenly woke up from his sleep and ran outside with his short legs. I shouldn't have slept in there. Chapter 872. Have you ever heard of the plain battlefield? Sect Master Jun Changxiao was experiencing things that only the protagonist would experience in Takes Unholy Sect. Jun Changxiao, the real protagonist of the Eternal Sect, was standing on the grassland at this moment, looking at the hilltop full of grass to satisfy hunger, and a smile gradually appeared on his face. This kind of life of cultivating disciples in the sect, planting flowers and raising fish is actually quite good. At least it is free and easy. Unfortunately, with a soul bomb tied to his body and the main task to complete, Jun Changxiao was destined to make everything he did for the primary purpose of strengthening the sect. Sect Master Wei Laolei said, a new batch of medicinal materials has matured. Should we harvest them now? Now, immediately. Jun Changxiao's smile became even brighter. The medicinal fields have recently planted various medicinal materials for refining top-grade healing pills, which are also a great reliance for going to the plain battlefield. Not long after, a wide variety of medicinal materials were delivered. Jun Changxiao put them into the space ring, opened the pill cabinet, and tapped on the pill, showing that the number of top-grade healing pills that can be refined is 423. After confirming the refining with one key, he murmured, more than 400 pills should be enough for now. He only planned to bring the elite forces of the sect to the plain battlefield, so the number of people must not be too large, and a few pills for each person would be enough. Jun Changxiao opened the task panel again, and saw that there was less than a month left for the settlement of the epic task, so he shook his head and sighed. Counting the days is simply torture. Sect Master Li Qingyang transmitted the voice. City Master Mu is here to see you. Oh. Jun Changxiao responded, and then returned to the hall. When he walked in, and saw Mu Changhang, he bowed and said, City Master Mu, we haven't seen each other for a while. Mu Changhang said, the affairs of the royal city are busy, and I can't spare the time. Jun Changxiao sat on the sect master's chair and smiled. Your daughter is very diligent in cultivation, and now she has broken through to the 6th grade martial king. In the past, Mu Changhang would definitely be overjoyed, but now he sighed when he heard it. Why is City Lord Mu sighing? In Jun Changxiao's impression, this City Lord always has a smile on his face, giving people the impression that he can face anything with a smile. Mu Changhang said, Master Jun, to be honest, I've been very upset recently. Upset? It seems that City Lord Mu is worried. Jun Changxiao put on a little sister sitting posture, saying I'm willing to listen to your worries and solve your problems. There was a moment of silence. Mu Changhang said in a serious tone, Master Jun, have you heard of the plain battlefield? Plain battlefield? Jun Changxiao's expression suddenly froze a little. More than just heard of it. I was beaten to death by the earth-level strongman when I went in. Mu Changhang looked at his expression and realized that this kind of thing was rarely known to others. How could he know it? So he explained, the plain battlefield is an independent space opened up by the great powers of the upper realm relying on their omnipotent abilities. The strong men of each plane can only fight non-stop when they enter it. Really? Jun Changxiao pretended to be curious. In terms of acting skills, Changxiao is definitely not as good as him. After all, he had read the book Self-Cultivation of Actors in that world. I'm not bragging. If Jun Changxiao gave up managing the sect and went to take Jun Changxiao as an undercover, he would definitely do better than the disciples. Of course, because of some innate attributes, there are some areas where he may not be able to compare with Changxiao, such as, forget it, I'll see through it, but not say it, and give Jun Gusheng some face. Mu Changhang said, the plain battlefield will randomly select a plane every 5 years, and 2,000 warriors with the lowest strength of the emperor level must be sent to fight in it. Is there such a thing? Jun Changxiao was full of surprise. It's not pretending. I really haven't heard of it. Moreover, Jun Changxiao thought of something in an instant, so he hurriedly said, our Xinjiang continent will not be selected, right? Yes. After saying these 2 words, Mu Changhang's expression was sad and painful. How he hoped that this was a joke from the altar, but in fact, he had to enter the plain battlefield to fight. Go in now? 5 years later, Jun Chang smiled and said, isn't that still too early? So, Mu Changhang said with difficulty. How I hope that in 5 years, Handian will not break through to the martial emperor level. Jun Chang smiled and said, what parent doesn't want their children to have a higher level of cultivation? Why does City Lord Mu have such an idea? Mu Changhang sighed and said, according to the regulations of the Upper Realm, our Xinjiang continent must send 2000 martial emperors to fight in the plain battlefield for 5 years before it ends. If a certain number of warriors sent in die, they must continue to be transported in. Lord Mu is worried that his daughter will enter the plain battlefield after breaking through the martial emperor. Jun Chang smiled. Yes. Mu Changhang said, I have lived for hundreds of years, and it doesn't matter if I die in there, but my daughter is still very young. If something happens. At this point, his voice began to tremble, and tears gathered in the corners of his eyes. He is a half-saint, and also a father. How can he accept his daughter going to the plain battlefield to die? It's not that serious. Jun Chang smiled. Although the plain battlefield is cruel, if enough emperors and top masters are sent, it may not be inferior to other plain masters. The system said, the host is measuring it based on the strength of his own sect, so there is naturally no problem, but the emperor level warriors of the Starfall continent are really much worse in the plain battlefield. For example, the yellow character strongman and other planes. The overall strength is generally higher than the martial emperor of the Starfall continent. If they go in, it is basically equivalent to sending themselves to death. And this half-saint Mu City Lord, do you think he will be stronger than the Zuan character strongman who was killed before? After listening to what the system said, Jun Changxiao fell into silence. He fought in the plain battlefield and killed many strong men who besieged him. One thing must be admitted. Under the same realm, their strength is stronger than the warriors of the Starfall continent. If explained in professional terms, the Zuan character strongman and other planes are all at the extreme level, and the Mu City Lord is nothing more than a high level. Although the realm is the same, there is a gap in strength. Of course, the Jun Sect master can do whatever he wants in there. First, he relies on various equipment, and second, he belongs to the super level, so there is no problem in crossing the level, and he is invincible in the same level. Alas. City Lord Mu sighed, it is undoubtedly a huge disaster that our Xinjiang continent was chosen this time. Can't refuse. No. Jun Changxiao secretly said, quite domineering. Since the War of the Emperors, the heaven and earth attributes of Xinjiang continent have been getting worse and worse. How can it compete with other planes, and how can it expand its territory? Mu Changhang's face became more and more ugly. Expand the territory? Jun Changxiao said, what do you mean? Mu Changhang briefly informed the matter, and then said, according to the regulations of the Upper Realm, if you develop your own territory to the scale of a town, you can apply to come out early, so as to minimize the loss. I see. Jun Changxiao understood, and muttered in his heart, it's not difficult to expand to the scale of a town. Chapter 873, as long as I'm here, there will be miracles. The rule of the plain battlefield is that any party can apply to leave in advance, as long as they expand their territory to a size similar to a town. In Jun Changxiao's opinion, this is very easy. After all, although he was a little embarrassed by the strong men of the word Earth, when he went in for a while, the stronghold representing the Xinjiang continent has also expanded a lot under his own efforts. The system complained. Are you sure you are not surrounded and forced to fight back? This is just casual. If you bring Ding Leo and Zilin Demon King and others with you and fight seriously, it will be no problem to develop it to the size of a town, not to mention a city. Wait a minute. Suddenly, Jun Changxiao thought of something and thought to himself, isn't it 5 years before we can enter the Xinjiang continent? How did the stronghold representing the Xinjiang continent come out in advance? The system said, the host is a warrior from the Xinjiang continent. It is natural to plan the territory belonging to the Xinjiang continent when he sneaks in. Jun Changxiao's mouth twitched slightly and said, does this mean that they will be teleported there when they enter the plain battlefield 5 years later? It should be. The system said. Jun Changxiao's expression suddenly became interesting, and he said, I can bring my disciples to sneak in advance. If the territory inside is expanded within 5 years, won't they be completely confused when they come in? The system said, it seems so. The Jun clan leader who has the portal can bring disciples who meet the requirements into the plain battlefield at any time, which is equivalent to 5 years faster than the Starfall continent. The female system once said that the territory can only be entrusted for 1 year, so it is certain that they will go in and have a look from time to time. In 5 years, the territory inside will be expanded to the city. When the warriors of the Starfall continent come up, the scene will definitely be Lord Mu. Jun Changxiao said, Hanglian has good qualifications. If she really wants to break through, it will be unstoppable. So don't be too pessimistic. It's better to take it one step at a time. Maybe after 5 years, when we enter the plain battlefield, we can come out immediately. Since he knew that the Starfall continent was selected to participate in the plain battlefield, as a body born and raised here, he must do something for everyone. System, Pa. No one in the 10 Directions Death Tower intends to bear the mission, and they are reluctant to accept it, because it is said to be beneficial. Will the host do something for everyone out of kindness? It doesn't exist. Please. Jun Changxiao collapsed and said, don't think of me as so selfish, okay? After all, I'm also a member of the Starfall continent. Come out right away. Mu Changhang shook his head and said bitterly, to be honest with you, Sect Master Jun, including me and some warriors who are about to enter, we are ready to die in battle. The altar informed many major sects and forces, as well as the top independent cultivators, about participating in the plain battlefield. Those strong men who decided to go to the front line did not plan to come out alive, and they would do their best to expand their territory and fight for a chance of survival for the younger generation. Mu Changhang thought so too. What he and other old strong men could do was to sacrifice themselves to prevent more warriors from the Starfall continent from falling in it. They were undoubtedly great, but they were also forced to do so, because the will of the upper realm could not be disobeyed, and they could not hide, so they could only choose to dedicate themselves. It's not that exaggerated. Jun Changxiao comforted, maybe there will be a miracle when that day comes. Miracle? Mu Changhang smiled bitterly. However, he also saw that Jun Changxiao did not take the plain battlefield to heart. This is understandable. After all, he is still very young and has not experienced much. The sect is also thriving, so it is inevitable that he will have a mentality that no one else in the world can do it but him. Master Jun. Mu Changhang said, you have also reached the emperor level. Although you are not on the first list, you must be prepared at any time. This is the purpose of his coming to the Eternal Ancient Sect today. It is not to visit his daughter, but to remind Jun Changxiao to be fully prepared for the battle within 5 years. In fact, Jun Gaocheng has been preparing for it for almost a year, and in a month, he will lead people to Qilin and find the Earth character strongman to avenge his hatred. Master Mu. Jun Changxiao leaned forward slightly and whispered, you said, if a miracle happens in 5 years and you can survive the disaster safely, but you need to pay a certain amount of natural spirit stones, will you agree? See? The system said, I guessed it right. What is the good intention to do for the Xinjiang continent? Bah, it's obviously not good intentions. Does this piece refer to the Xinjiang continent? That's fine. Mu Changhang didn't think twice and answered directly, if the Xinjiang continent can survive this calamity safely, let alone natural spirit stones, I will give you everything you want. Do other warriors think so? Jun Chang smiled. Mu Changhang said seriously, the plain battlefield is extremely dangerous. Our Xinjiang continent is far less powerful than other planes. If we go in, we will be sending our heads. If we can survive this calamity, we will not only avoid falling, but also continue the top power of the continent. Any strong man will agree. Resources are of course very important, but for life, for the future of the entire Xinjiang continent, it is really not worth mentioning. I understand. Jun Changxiao was relieved, and said with a smile, Lord Mu, as the saying goes, sincerity is the key to success. Maybe there will be a miracle in 5 years. He has decided that it is too low to go to the plain battlefield for revenge. Since he is a member of Xinjiang continent, he must do something for everyone and help them through the disaster. Responsibility. A man's responsibility. Me. Jun Changxiao. I'm willing to sacrifice my life and blood for Xinjiang continent. The system collapsed and said, what the host is thinking about now is whether the price will be based on per capita or team pricing in 5 years. Dad, why are your eyes red? My daughter is practicing in the eternal ancient sect. I'm happy that she can break through the 6th grade martial king so quickly. Mu Changhang is trying to make himself look very happy so as not to worry his daughter. Mu Hongyan didn't think too much and said with a firm look, Dad, my daughter will definitely break through the emperor level in the shortest time. This sentence made Mu Changhang's mood, which had finally been lifted, fall to the bottom again. He did not take the miracle that Jun Changxiao just mentioned to heart. He was ready to die in battle. If his daughter broke through to the emperor level, she would definitely follow his old path. Dad, why are you crying? Mu Hongyan saw tears in the corners of her father's eyes and was puzzled. Mu Changhang quickly raised his sleeves to wipe away his tears and said with a forced smile, aren't you happy? After chatting with his daughter for a while, he left the Wangu sect and his back looked quite old. Master Jun is right. If you really want to break through, you can't stop it. You can only take it one step at a time. As for stopping at the foot of the mountain, Mu Changhang looked up at the sky and prayed in his heart, I really hope that a miracle will happen that day. Master, Mu Hongyan wondered, my father is a little bit wrong. Jun Changxiao, standing outside the hall, said with his hands behind his back, your elm has broken through so quickly, it is normal to cry with joy. The spiritual thoughts always captured the gradually receding old back and secretly said, Master Mu, don't worry, as long as I'm here, there will be miracles. Chapter 874 Lu Qianqian breaks through the martial emperor. Suzaomo was still an undercover agent in the Strongest Sect, and Jun Changxiao was also actively preparing to enter the plain battlefield. He learned that the Starfall continent would participate in 5 years, and half-saints like Mu Chengsu went in with the mentality of sending themselves to die, which made him decide that he must do something. Previously, he went into the plain battlefield purely for personal grudges to make trouble, but now it has risen to the level of family and country. Of course, this premise still cannot be separated from benefits. Jun Changxiao thought so, and it was understandable. If the Starfall continent wants a miracle, it can't just rely on prayers and kneeling, at least it has to take some practical actions. What's more, Jun Changxiao put his hands in front of the camera, a handsome face came over, and said seriously, the plain battlefield is extremely dangerous. I can die in it at any time, if I take people there. Is it too much to ask them for some benefits? Swish. He stepped out of the hall and entered the secret realm of time and space and began to accelerate his cultivation for 3 days. In the past year, although the 2 epic tasks suppressed the realm and made cultivation meaningless, they could comprehend martial arts. For example, the dragon elephant prajna palm. This palm technique has been cultivated successfully and has only been used to demolish buildings in the 9 Poison Palace, so its presence is very low. It's not that Jun Changxiao doesn't want to use it, but mainly because he hasn't reached a certain level of comprehension, and its power is not as direct and straightforward as the Chixiouli Iron Slash. Hoo-hoo. In the secret realm, a huge wave of air formed, gradually condensing 10 dragon elephants that seemed to be real, exuding an ancient desolate atmosphere, and it seemed like 10 ancient beasts walked out of the void. Jun Changxiao stood up like a javelin, and then turned his right hand and pressed down. Dragon elephant prajna palm. Hoo-hoo. Boom. 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 The power of the 10 dragon elephants blasted down from top to bottom, and the powerful momentum generated when it came into contact with the ground shock leaking Guiyang, Xiao Zuji and others. Wait. Why are we here? When the sect master is pretending to be cool, you must be beside him to show your surprise. This is one of the laws of the Eternal Sect. When Jun Changxiao initially comprehended the dragon elephant prajna palm, he could only condense 1 dragon elephant power, but now he has gathered 10, and his progress is actually quite fast. In the long run, hundreds, thousands, and tens of thousands of them will be condensed. According to the super large physique of dragons and elephants, the more they are, the more vast the world will be needed, otherwise it will be difficult to fit them. In fact, they can be miniaturized. Jun Changxiao cannot do it at his current level. He retracted his momentum and said, I have finally comprehended the power of 10 dragon elephants, but judging from the current progress, I will not be able to gather more unless I break through to the semi-saint level. If you want to comprehend a higher level of powerful martial arts, you must build on your strong cultivation. If you give the Azure Dragon Crescent Blade to a scholar who is powerless, I'm afraid he can only use it to shave. Opening the task panel, there are 10 days left to the settlement date. Jun Changxiao shook his head and said, I'm willing to use 10 days of my life in exchange for the immediate settlement of the task. What about 10 years? Forget it, I'll wait. At first, Jun Changxiao came to the secret realm of time and space in a self-righteous way, hoping to complete the settlement in advance by accelerating time, but after entering, the task was counted down, and it was obvious that he could not take shortcuts. No hurry, no hurry. Jun Changxiao consoled himself, it's a matter of time. Long before he bought and returned to the sect, he had copied countless copies of the Dragon Elephant Prajna Palm and distributed them to Li Qingyang and others. However, because he was temporarily focusing on leveling up, he didn't really comprehend much. Now that they have reached the peak of the Martial King, it will take a long time to enter the Martial Emperor, so he has time to practice. The best performance is Woody. Because he entered the Great Realm quickly and had enough time to practice, he has now gathered 4 Dragon Elephant powers. Yi Xingchen broke through to the Emperor level 1 step later than him. He has successfully gathered 2 Dragon Elephant powers since he comprehended the Dragon Elephant Prajna Palm. As the leader and the second in the brain-filling trio, he was shocked by this martial art long before he practiced. The crazy brain-filling must come from the upper realm. In fact, the brain filling is not bad. For the level of martial arts like the Dragon Elephant Prajna Palm, it is really hard to find it in the lower realm. Li Qingyang recited the formula, and an ancient aura burst out from his body, gathering a dragon and an elephant. Although he was far inferior to Jun Changxiao in momentum, at least he had a glimpse of the way. Xiao Zuji, Li Fei and others were also comprehending. With their qualifications, hard work and the help of the secret realm of time and space, it was not a problem for them to comprehend such a powerful martial art. Jiangzi and the Ning brothers and others had already begun to comprehend the Dragon Elephant Prajna Palm, and their progress was much better than that of the disciples. For now, although the high-level martial arts of the Eternal Ancient Sect are not as rich and colorful as those of the big sects, at least they are better in level, and have more development prospects than them. When we get to the plain battlefield, the disciples will gather the power of the dragon and elephant, and the scene will definitely be wonderful. Jun Changxiao was looking forward to it. Hoo-hoo. With 5 days left before the settlement period, a huge momentum suddenly erupted from the inner courtyard female disciples room area. Qian Qian is going to break through? Jun Changxiao, who was sitting in the house, was surprised. That woman often used coldness to hide everything about herself, and he couldn't wear sunglasses every day, so he never expected that she would be the second disciple to enter the Emperor level after Woody. Of course, he was just surprised by the breakthrough. In fact, he could understand entering the Emperor level. After all, he inherited the Ice Emperor's mantle in Luzhou, northeast China. Damn it. Yi Xingchen clenched his fist and said, another disciple is 1 step faster than me. As a reborn martial emperor, with a lot of martial arts experience, he was 1 step faster than Woody and Liu Qian Qian to break through to the martial emperor, which made him feel very humiliated. RNIU, don't cry, don't make a fuss, don't be angry. It's not that you are not good enough, but your unique advantages can't be fully reflected in the Eternal Ancient Sect. Hoo-hoo. A strong wave of air roared out, containing a stream of cold air. It was originally a hot summer season, but it suddenly turned into a freezing winter. Some disciples were wearing thin clothes. Under the raging cold air, they either silently practiced the fire system of the 5-element Jianshan due to increase their body temperature, or put on winter clothes. This strong cold air blowing from Siberia lasted for about half an hour before it converged, until everything returned to normal, and everyone silently took off their winter clothes. It was cold for a while, and hot for a while. The feeling of ice and fire was not pleasant. Breakthrough? Breakthrough. Liu Qian Qian habitually leaned against the door edge with her hands together. Because of the improvement of the Great Realm, the whole person's temperament changed, giving people the feeling that she seemed to be colder. If Xia Xuan is compared to an iceberg that has not melted for 100 years, she, who has the takes of an ice heart body, is definitely an iceberg that has not melted for 10,000 years. Jun Changxiao sat in the first seat, and the atmosphere was very awkward because of the cold air. After a while, he said, "We'll be going to the plain battlefield in a few days, so you have to make more preparations." "Yes." Liu Qian said, "The sect master has nothing else to say, so I'll leave first." "Go ahead." Jun Changxiao waved his hand, thinking to himself, although it's still very cold, the tone is much gentler than before. Everyone in the sect is used to Liu Qian's cold personality. Sometimes when they go out, the feeling of ice and snow disappears, and they feel a little uncomfortable. 5 more days. Jun Changxiao leaned back in his chair and wailed, "Come quickly, I've been constipated for several days because of anxiety." Chapter 875 Epic Mission Rewards Calculation. Time passed day by day. Li Qingyang and others were actively practicing to prepare for entering the plain battlefield. And Jun Changxiao sometimes squatted in the toilet with a sad face, and sometimes tossed and turned in bed late at night. 1 day, 1 hour, 1 minute, 50 seconds, 40 seconds. Jun Changxiao sat in the study, his eyes never leaving the task panel that only he could see, and the epic task settlement time had entered a last minute countdown. Damn. It's been a year. It feels like it's been as long as 10,000 years. Tick, tick, tick. The time kept ticking until it entered the 10-second countdown. Jun Changxiao stood up, stretched out his hands, and sang affectionately, "Come on, come on, meet at 98, meet under the silver moonlight." Ding. The sect level has reached the 4th rate level, and the top 80 in the list of heroes competing for the throne have met the definition conditions. The epic mission is completed with a completion rate of 125%. The host obtains 20,000 contribution points. Ding. Sect contribution value 44,200 over 50,000 point. After the time returned to 0, a beautiful reminder sounded in his ears. Jun Changxiao stopped howling like a ghost, and a calm expression appeared on his face. Don't worry, this has just begun, and the real show is behind, because 2 epic mission rewards have to be settled. Ding. Congratulations to the host for completing Epic Mission 7 and obtaining 10 top quality qualification transformation fluids, 1 high quality Zenyang combat boots formula, 1 high quality Zenyang battle robe formula, 1 high quality Zenyang mask formula, and 1 high quality steel wing formula. Hearing 3 high quality equipment with similar names, Jun Changxiao was a little surprised. This seems to be similar to a set in the game. And I also got a high quality Zenyang sword formula before. Are the 4 things one? And the steel wings, are they similar to the mechanical armed wings? Ding. Congratulations to the host for completing Epic Mission 8 and obtaining 5 holy qualification transformation fluids, 1 medium quality body shaping pill formula, 1 medium quality soul shaping pill formula, 1 shiny and soul calming tower, and 1 new seal talisman. Ding. Congratulations to the host for breaking through to the half-step martial saint. Ding. Ding. The formulas that appeared in the space ring were automatically matched, and 4 new equipment appeared in the foundry pavilion, and 2 new pills appeared in the pill pavilion. Comfortable. Perfect. After the prompt sound ended, Jun Changxiao put his elbow on the table, covered his right hand with his left hand, pressed his face with his right hand, and began to tremble slightly, and then a devilish laugh came. After the 2 epic tasks at the Emperor level were settled, the rewards were really a lot. Not to mention those equipment that looked like suits. Just the 2 types of qualification liquids of the Supreme Saint and the medium grade soul shaping pills were very cool. It's worth my wait for a year. Jun Changxiao was very satisfied, but it was not the time to get carried away. He hurriedly opened the foundry pavilion and clicked on the equipment with the True Yang prefix one by one. As he guessed, this was indeed a suit, called the True Yang 4-piece suit. Wearing boots, a battle robe, a mask, and holding the True Yang sword, the speed, defense, and strength will increase by 20% from the original basis of the user. Only 20%? Jun Changxiao was a little dissatisfied. In his opinion, it must be at least 100% to be awesome. The system said speechlessly, the high quality equipment in the mall is not inferior to the holy equipment level of the Xingqiu continent. To wear it, you must be a martial king or above. This 20% increase is quite awesome. The strength of low-level warriors is not too different, so it is hard to say who will win or lose, but the higher the level, the greater the impact will be. The strength of the strong in the plain battlefield is generally stronger than that of the Xingqiu continent. If the disciples wear the 4-piece set of Zhenang, they will definitely be strong. Jun Changxiao said secretly. The system said, the core disciples of the host have undergone various tempering and spiritual root improvement and are generally at the extreme level. If there is a 20% increase in this kind of equipment, it will be comparable to super. Jun Changxiao touched his chin and said, these equipment are made of the same materials as the Zhenang sword, but the quantity is different. There happens to be some inventory in the ring, so we can refine some first. Fill in the quantity and confirm the refining. Jun Changxiao clicked on the high quality steel wings again. The introduction said that this is a kind of equipment that can increase the flight speed. The advantages that it can be used immediately after opening, and the disadvantages that it must reach the emperor level or above to use it. To put it bluntly, it is a prop to assist flight. Jun Changxiao shook his head and said, it is far inferior to the mechanical armed wings I bought. Nonsense. This is a reward. The armed wings are bought with contribution points, so there must be a difference. If the reward is better than them all, would you still want to spend money? The current situation of Jun Changxiao is that he has become a VIP by charging money. The reward for completing the epic mission is similar to the monthly fixed VIP reward. Although it is somewhat useful, if you want to be stronger and more awesome, you can only continue to go to the mall to spend money. So the slogan is, if you don't have money, you can play it. The 6 kinds of ores required for the iron wings happen to be in Jun Changxiao's hands, so he chose to produce 20, based on the principle of refining them, since they were given the benefit of letting the purchasing hall be responsible for purchasing various materials at all times is reflected here. As long as there is something new, it can be convenient to refine, instead of going through 3 or 5 chapters, just to get enough materials for one piece of equipment. Jun Changxiao also clicked on the medium grade body shaping pill and soul shaping pill in the pill pavilion. The 2 items know what they do as soon as they are named, but they are definitely stronger than the primary ones in terms of effect. There are materials, but they cannot be mass produced. Jun Changxiao first refined it, and then said, when there are enough materials for mass production, it will be planned as a must-take elixir for the sect. The so-called must-take means that no matter the level, whether it is the inner or outer sect, as long as the disciples enter the eternal sect and meet the conditions for taking it, they must take it. These top-grade and holy-grade qualification liquids are left for the inner disciples to take. Jun Changxiao's spiritual thoughts merged into the space ring and finally locked on the exquisite small tower, thinking, is this the Shianyu soul calming tower? The system explained, it is a treasure. I know. Jun Changxiao is no longer a martial arts rookie. Just from the name and shape, it is known that the Shianyu soul calming tower is a treasure type. What he cares about now is what level this thing is and what function it has. The system said, the tower has 3 functions. One is that it can be magnified, and there is a world inside, such as the training tower. The second is the attack form, which can be used to hit people, and the third is a defense form. I hope it is the second one. Jun Changxiao said. In the plain battlefield, he was hit by the palm print of the earth character Strongman many times. If he wanted revenge, he would definitely treat him the way he treated him. Swish. He waved his hand and brought the Shianyu soul calming tower. Hoo-hoo. Suddenly, a faint fluorescent light was released from the tower, and it was like an elf circling around Jun Changxiao. The system said, this is to sign a contract with the host. Really? Jun Changxiao released a wisp of soul and touched the fluorescent light. He immediately felt the electric current coming, and then established a certain connection with the Shianyu soul calming tower. So simple, so convenient. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.